And we're live. Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. There's no intro due to there's been some issues with a lot of channels getting hit lately, and I didn't want to risk, like, most of these are just AI slop that I put in the beginning, and I'm just like, I don't really want to mess with it. So we're just doing a cold open right now until YouTube calms down, and I don't really want to feel like getting hit with some sort of weird ban off of Mr. Rogers saying something that he really didn't say. So I guess we're going to play it now. But we do have some good topics to talk about. There's like a lot of stuff that's gone on the past week. Like, there's not even everything in here that we're going to talk about tonight, but we do have a stellar group of gentlemen joining this evening that we are going to go through all this stuff. So introduce everybody here. So of course we have Mr. Orange Grove 55 as always. Thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you out here on the always gentle internet?
Yeah, very, very gentle. Yeah, no, you can find me right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55, talking shop with these fine gentlemen all the time. Theme park, studio, corporate, you name it, we talk about it. We even talk about ancient Egypt pyramids every now and then.
We do sometimes.
We go on some side quests. We do. We go on some side quests. But also, I do want to thank Mr. Kiki and Luca for the gifted one membership for OG55. I appreciate you so much, sir. Thank you so much. But yeah, find me right here on YouTube. You can also find me on Instagram. You can also find me on X at Orange Grove 55.
Yes, sir. I was actually kind of sad, that whole hidden Sphinx thing. I don't know how real that is. I looked into it a little bit. The guy that is saying he took it from a photograph. Like, they didn't do a LiDAR. It was like a photograph that he said he scanned with his own proprietary technology. So there is some debate about, is that real? I hope it's real. But the more I looked into, I think Jimmy Corsetti had a video on it, and he was like, I'm not saying it's not real, but I need some more evidence. And I was like, man, I was really hoping that was going to dig that thing up here in the next couple of weeks. But I guess
I love stuff like that. I was rooting for it too.
I mean, whether or not it exists there right now, I think there probably was another one, but we'll talk about that sometime, because I've been doing a deep dive on Egypt, and you can, like, some of these videos like 3 hours long. I will watch the whole thing, just mesmerize the entire time. It's a great way to go to bed at night. But we're also joined by Mr. Theme Park Philosophy. We missed him on the last one here. He is back in his glorious return. And you're looking more and more like Enrique Iglesias every single day. And I mean that as the utmost compliment that I can give another man.
I appreciate that. I actually have his mole growing in a petri dish right now, and I'm going to attach it. I'm going to attach it to my body here shortly. So hopefully the next time I'm on, you'll see a nice big mole right here.
I like it.
I'm trying to get, fantastic. I'm trying to get the look spot on. But thank you very much, Jared. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you guys. Vash Sky, Orange Grove 55, and Jared in the house. We're here to talk about the latest happenings in theme parks. It's going to be juicy. There's a lot of interesting big things going on in parks right now. We actually have a nice heavy week. A lot of times we have to dig under rocks to see, hey, what's going on? But no, the theme park community and these companies have really decided that they were going to throw us a bone this week, so that way we have a lot to bite into, and I'm really looking forward to digging into it with you folks.
Yeah, there was one of those weeks where it was like I had to like omit things, because like I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was like kind of hard to find a couple of stories, and now I'm just like, there's too many. I don't know what to go through here. So maybe I'll just be another extra one for the next time. But and making another return to the channel, I think this is number 65, somewhere around there, Mr. Vash Sky. I joined Vash a couple weeks ago, one of his live streams. Be sure to go check out his channel as well. But Vash, thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you out on the lovely internet?
Everybody can find me on Vash Sky ParkCast, where we're cutting up all these very interesting stories right here. Some of them, maybe some of them you've heard out there in the mainstream there, but others, well, Sloth World, for example. Fortunately, attraction over there at Florida, they lost 52 sloths. It seems like an extreme case of neglect. Yeah, it's crazy. But it didn't get a lot of coverage, so we covered it over there on Vash Sky ParkCast and a whole lot more. So we go live every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Saturday for members only, every single, Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's what we're kind of doing right there. Bunch of live streams. We're going to have some video content very, very shortly, but we usually take on these topics as well. So if you want to go ahead and hear my perspective on all of these things and so much more, you can go ahead and find me there. And definitely get OG George. Sorry. That just happened. Just from just that's bad habits die hard, I suppose. We've got to get OG and theme park philosophy and Jared back on, because I think, Jared, your insight in terms of what's happening actually at Walt Disney World, I think was really, really intriguing the last time you were on. You were a really big fan favorite. You were in the chat today watching my show. People love you. So we definitely got to get you back on. And philosophy, come on, got to get you on there as well. I love your taking commentary too. So there you go. Sorry guys, but hey, you know what? We are we're doing it over there. Sky ParkCast. Awesome stuff.
Well, now, did you say they lost 53 sloths?
Yeah.
52 sloths.
52.
So they imported, I think it was, I think that count is up to 53 now, which is unfortunate because Bandit unfortunately passed. He was in critical condition when he was turned over to the authorities, like the zoo and so forth. But yeah, there was this attraction called Sloth World that a couple of proprietors were trying to set up, and they were importing these sloths from all over the world, like Guyana, for example, Peru, right? And they have a very delicate ecosystem, right, that they live in, and their ecologies are very tuned to that. So if those aren't maintained, especially for them, like atmospheric changes, for example, different dietary habits that are very unique to them, if those aren't maintained carefully, they can get into some bad way. So when I guess they imported, I'm thinking of the total right now. I think it was 66 or so sloths that they imported, and so many of them passed away, which was terrible. When the remaining were turned over to the authorities, like the zoo, for example, they were dehydrated, they were malnourished, they had suffered from a very unique virus that had spread throughout this colony of sloths right there, and from what I understand too, there's some allegations that they were kept in a warehouse in two small confined cages, but they can't regulate the body temperature, and Florida just suffered a bad freeze, right? I believe this was back in February, and a lot of the sloths were lost because of that, because they couldn't maintain the temperature of that warehouse. So that was a whole big thing, and it's a terrible story, but it's kind of like it's one I think worth discussing, only because there was so many sloths that were lost all at once in the pursuit of this idea that we're going to just have this basic attraction, we're going to have these very docile creatures, it's going to be easy cash, and unfortunately for those sloths, it didn't work out for them.
Yeah. I love, and the reason why I asked is I have a soft spot for sloths. I think they're adorable.
They are cool. They are really cool looking. I've always thought it'd be cool to have like a pet penguin that follows you around, like just walking around, waddle next to you. But obviously you couldn't do it in Florida because it's way too hot. But Florida is wild though. If you go outside my house at 5 a.m., you will hear a lion roaring first thing in the morning. And the first time I heard it, I was like, what is that? And my neighbor was like, oh, there's a animal sanctuary on this other side of the thing, and they have lions and tigers. And it's like, I didn't know that. That's terrifying. And it's just, that Florida is just, it's different.
Oh, it is. Yeah, we have squirrels out here in California, but we don't have alligators and lions and all kinds of crazy stuff that you guys have.
Look at that guy.
Look at this guy, gangster.
What a cutie.
They are cool. They are like, I could see the appeal of a sloth world. Undoubtedly. Sure. Obviously, if you can't take care of them, that's terrible. But yeah, that would be. I would go. I think well taken care of. I'd go see some sloths.
Absolutely. I actually thought the concept was not a bad idea. But if you can't necessarily properly care for them, if you can't give them the treatment and food that they actually need to survive and really thrive in captivity, then it's just not worth the exercise. Unfortunately, we had a situation in which I think people were trying to maybe capitalize on, like Zootopia, for example, Flash and all of that, which I believe one of these sloths was named Flash. And it's just, I think it was just greed that really impacted a lot of their decision making, and they didn't quite make it. But the amount of them was really eye opening. It's like, how did this happen? What failures did you have as as a culture to allow this to happen. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. They're so photogenic. They're always like posing.
They really are. They are very photogenic.
So they're always like know the camera's around. They're just like, we gotta look really cool here in this shot. Like even that one, you're just like riding on the back of your dad or something. Like that just looks cool.
It does. And this one, I mean, you're right. Very photogenic. Very handsome guys. I love them.
I mean, they're definitely handsome. Yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. Well, hopefully the ones that survive get some good homes and don't have to live in a warehouse. Undoubtedly,
Sloth World was apparently shut down very recently, so that is probably a good thing, because even if it did work out, I don't know if we want these proprietors in charge of this stuff. Like if you couldn't get the first 53 right, I don't know if you're going to get the next 53 correct.
Right, yeah.
So shutting down.
Some, Joe Exotic vibes a little bit.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers Joe Exotic, there, who is apparently tweeting from prison. I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing you could do, but apparently he runs a Twitter account from prison. So I don't know.
Interesting.
I guess, but
must be that maybe he's on good behavior. Maybe.
I mean, maybe. Like, let this guy have a phone and see what happens in here. But yeah, it's interesting. But all right, let's get into our first. Actually, before I go, I'm always on the look for knick-knacks. So I took my son to Five Below. You guys know what Five Below is?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yes.
It's like catnip for kids. Like anytime they go to Five Below, you get something. So they had a bunch of these Nintendo, like they're actually little lamps, but they were like $5 a piece.
What?
And I just saw them in the corner, and there was like just a few of them. So I got this one, but the best one is this one here. But it's these little like Nintendo pieces.
Oh yeah, dude.
Cool.
But I guess they light up. But I was like, not often I find something in that store that I was like, I want. And then I went there for my son, and I came out more stuff with him. So I guess I'm a bigger kid than he is. So I guess it is what it is there. But I'm always looking for those things. But all right, let's get into our first discussion topic here, which we're going to talk about Galaxy's Edge, because they announced, we talked about before, where they were making some changes to Galaxy's Edge, bringing in some original trilogy characters. And that premiered at Disneyland. Now, I can't really I'm not going to play the music or anything, because John Williams music will get you hit immediately.
Yeah.
Not anything here. Actually, I'm going to try and do this. Hold on. I don't want to show my DMs here. Let me, hold on. How do I do this here? I'm going to figure this out on the fly. There we go. All right. I was like, I realized I'm about to show DMs. I'm like, probably shouldn't do that. There's like that in there. I just, I don't. All right, let me bring this up. I'm just producing on the fly here. Let's see. Here we go. So yeah, I'm not gonna play any music here, but you had some, Darth Vader showing up, and astonishingly playing Star Wars music in a Star Wars land, including, I believe they played the Darth Vader music as well when he appeared. So now I haven't seen this, obviously, just seen some footage. We did hear from our good friend Mr. Webba. He even said, it sounded it was just a better land with that music in there. But what are you guys' thoughts on this? And do you think that this fixes Galaxy's Edge, or is this just a move in the right direction with maybe some more stuff coming?
I think this is a move in the right direction. I think this is a really huge step in the right direction. The music alone, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And I've always said it, like with Star Wars, the music is a character in and of itself. Yep. Like those movies start off with like that fanfare. I mean, how do you have a Star Wars land that's dead silent? Like it seems like sacrilegious almost. Like, how do you do that? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So for me, I think that the music is amazing. I love the fact we're getting the old school style stormtroopers. That's also really dope. Vader, I mean, he crushes it. He comes out looking like a boss as always. I mean, it just feels really good to have some other eras of this great franchise represented, And look, I'm not even saying like the sequel trilogy shouldn't be represented. I'm all for that too. That's part of Star Wars. But we need the OT in here. We also need let's get some prequel action in here. Let's get some Anakin Skywalker, And so yeah, for me, I love this. I think it's a fantastic move. It's a huge step in the right direction. But it doesn't fix it though. I still think we need more. I would love to see maybe like a sit-down restaurant. We can do maybe like a Jabba's Palace. I think Slimer, Jose, you mentioned that back in the day. A Jabba's Palace would be sick, bro, with a Jabba animatronic or something. So we got work to do, but this is a great step in the right direction. And I also do find it, and I was talking to these gentlemen before the show, I also do find it very coincidental, and it's totally a coincidence, totally a coincidence that these changes happened almost immediately after Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger left. Again,
wait, they were the biggest advocates for the original trilogy. I mean, they tried their best to bring these in. Well, yeah, no, they didn't. You're right. It's probably not a coincidence at all, I would say.
Pretty much. What say you, Vash?
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. A lot of people were making those connections initially, and it's interesting when you hear about these stories and how they just stayed through. Remember, they were making moves to bring in Luke while Kathleen Kennedy was actually still there last year. So I think that was the big test to see, okay, what's the fervor for a character like this to be included? And obviously we know that it was really, really big, right? And then it was like, I think by that point, the arguments to keep these characters out had run out of steam. I think, to your point, OG, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy were looking, to retire. They had bigger, things on their mind, right? So when it came to the timeline for a big billion-dollar project like this, it just became kind of a lower priority. And especially after the fervor that was created for the introduction of Luke Skywalker, I think I told everybody, hey, people are going to resonate with this. And especially for Disneyland, I mean, you got to think, right? So for Walt Disney World, you might see that the wait times for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, for example, that might average out to 1 to 2 hours, depending on the day that you actually go to Disney's Hollywood Studios to experience that attraction. But Disneyland, it was regularly looking at 5, 10, 15 minutes, because so many people come in from all over Southern California, and they come in multiple times a year in a lot of cases. I think 75% of all the annual attendance for Disneyland comes from within 250 miles of that resort right there. People had kind of seen it, and they didn't necessarily need to go back to see it again. So I think the characters being included or incorporated in California was specifically a way to enthuse the audience to this land, get people back there in the back of Disneyland, and really kind of bring some much needed energy to this place, because it was kind of becoming a ghost town. It was a little bit concerning. Here, though, when you have like the music, which, by the way, it took 7 years to get Star Wars music in Star Wars Land. That's crazy. Yeah. But okay, when you have the music, when you have those amazing John Williams scores playing through those that amazing Atmos system that they have that was built into the land when this was conceived, it really does change, I think, your opinion, your feeling when you actually walk in here.
Yeah,
you can relocate somebody through architecture to a certain time and place. There's no question about that. But when you have the sounds of, let's say, the trolley going down Buena Vista Street, things change. And so when you have that music from Star Wars that is so iconic and so interlinked with that franchise, it just does something to your brain where it's like, okay, this is Star Wars. And I don't think that was immediately felt by the broader audience when looking at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and it certainly is now. It's a good step, like OG had said before. I don't think it's everything they need to do. There are some more changes that should be made, but I think the impression that people come away with from this land will be like, okay, that was Star Wars, in a way that it just hadn't before.
No, the music adds so much like vibe to this land. It's crazy. Like I've been watching these videos. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. Like the difference just with the music alone, with the difference in the energy, and you have John Williams at your disposal and you don't use him. Like that's wild to me. I mean, that is wild to me.
It's the most recognizable music you could argue probably ever in cinema. And it is, and I agree with you, it's a character in of itself. And Vash, you even talked about in your live stream how music hits at emotions that nothing else can, like memories and how you feel. And even like from what, again, I haven't seen this in person, but having the music in there does make the land feel different. I think it feels much better. And if you did nothing else but the music, I think that's a step in the right direction. And funny enough, like years ago, I had an ex-Imagineer that helped work on Galaxy's Edge, and he was talking about how there was a backup plan built into it to be able to do this exact thing, which is interesting. I don't know. He was actually talking about more changes. So they do have the possibility of doing more, because I agree with you guys. it's a step in the right direction. You're including these characters that people want to see, but I think the prequel era would be great to see, and just dropping this whole sacred timeline that they have. It just always was a silly thing to me. And I think if you look at Universal, what they did, the Wizarding Worlds, that's the blueprint there, which is like you're just putting people into the scenes they know. You've got the music, you've got all the nostalgic hits, you got all this stuff there, and it's a great recipe that I think they tried to get a little too cute with Galaxy's Edge, and they may be in the midst of trying to fix it. And now that Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are gone, maybe Josh has taken the opportunity here to kind of correct some wrongs, hopefully.
Well, it's crazy to me, right? It's crazy to me that you have this land is approximately 14 to 15 acres, which is a huge amount of space. And it's a huge amount of real estate, especially here on the West Coast, because we are very limited with our space, you know? So you're dedicating 14 to 15 acres in Disneyland for this area dedicated to Star Wars. But then you're going to narrow that whole thing down to, first of all, it's already a narrow scope because it's a land based on one franchise. But then you're going to niche it down even further. And from what I understand, this land, the official timeline, was between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. The space in between those two movies. Yeah. That is insane to me. And that little tiny space. And here's the thing. They had to actually, all this Star Wars stuff like Mando and Ahsoka and all this other stuff that didn't fit that narrow little timeline window had to go into Star Tours and Tomorrowland because the 14-acre land, the timeline didn't work, right? It's ridiculous to me you have that much space and you couldn't even use these things.
Well, it was crazy what the operational decisions that would make to maintain that timeline, right? Like, for example, Princess Night occurred some years ago, and they had, all the princesses out, but one of the ones that was featured and had a big response was Princess Leia. And she was in her kind of normal New Hope gown, but she had to be sequestered to basically like Star Traders or Tomorrowland, right? But she couldn't make appearances in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge because, well, that doesn't necessarily, it's not consistent with our timeline. And it's like, what are you doing? We can't have Leia in Star Wars Land for a special event? That's crazy. That's insane. That's nuts. And I think contradiction is okay. It's all right. There's so many different timelines that are featured within the Star Wars galaxy. There are so many different media that cover so many different characters and so forth. To be, beholden to this kind of internal consistency, I think it's a fool's errand. And it really does cut the fun that could have otherwise been had from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge when you actually do that. I think we're going to see some costume choices that Leia has undergone here for her appearance right here, and some costumes that they could have otherwise made that were a little bit more feminine. The Leia thing it's a little bit strange to me because they don't even refer to her as Princess Leia. It's like General Leia or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, and I think you hit a point, and I want to get your take on this theme park philosophy. But it's like I think when you said that the land just didn't seem fun. And I think that's the thing about it. It was almost like that's what it's supposed to be. You're just supposed to go in there and enjoy the IP, but it was like you're so hamstrung on the parts of the IP that you can actually experience in a Star Wars land. Like at Disney World, Darth Vader doesn't even have a home. Like they're constantly moving him around. I'm like, just why? Like I do think this comes to Disney World at some point. I don't know when. I would be shocked if they did this at Disneyland and not at Disney World. But it's just so silly. You have the greatest villain in cinema. You can't put him in your Star Wars land because it doesn't fit the timeline. But you got Mando in there, which I'm fine with that. But it's like that doesn't really fit the timeline either.
No.
And so it just seems like contradictions all over the place with this, and just have fun with it. Like have the characters, let people enjoy it. Does it make sense? It doesn't have to. I mean, you're talking about space wizards. I mean, it all doesn't have to make sense that much, anyways. But what's your take on this theme park philosophy?
Yeah, so I want to go back to the music of Star Wars because I think that Disney really undermined how much it plays a pivotal role in shaping the metaphysics of Star Wars. Some people even say that the music is equivalent to the feeling of the Force itself, and if it wasn't for John Williams' profound orchestral score, that you wouldn't even be able to feel the foreshadowing and the danger and the romance and the power of the Force. And in a lot of ways, the track for this trilogy, the original trilogy, even, all the trilogies really, It is a co-creator of the Star Wars universe. And so whenever Galaxy's Edge existed for 6 to 7 years without it, you were only really delivering half of Star Wars in a very metaphysical sense, because of how much the score shaped how we think about it, how Star Wars makes us feel, how Luke and Han and Leia make us feel. And you know what's funny is I was actually just watching Bricky's latest video. I think it was on Bricky's vlog. Shout out to you. Hey, Bricky.
Oh, yeah.
And the music they're playing is very subtle. A lot of it's Leia's theme from Return of the Jedi, or Padme's theme from The Phantom Menace. And just that subtle theming, it just adds so much bountifulness to the Star Wars experience, which is, when you think about Star Wars, go back, everybody in the chat, you know, all you guys here, go back into the history of your mind, and when you used to play in the Star Wars universe in your mind, it was never separated from the music. The music was very integral in informing how you feel about Luke, Han, and Leia. They were never separate. So the music was always there. And so when they introduced Galaxy's Edge without the music, it was an incomplete masterpiece, in my opinion, a very broken one. So I think Disney, I don't know why they didn't. I mean, I understand what they were trying to do, but to try to separate the metaphysics of Star Wars from the music, which co-authored it, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, Vash, please.
Well, I think what they were trying to accomplish, right, was this very living, breathing, organic land in which, you know, things like music would be provided by the entertainment that you would actually experience within the land itself. And that's why you had these very ambient sound effects in order to complement that. But when it was very clear that we weren't going to get, you know, performers and different aliens walking around like what was conceived of, it should have been, hey, like we got to rethink this. We should probably do something that's a little bit more in keeping with the expectations of the audience, that being musical scores that people can hear right now, when, you know, right before they arrive Forbidden Journey, for example, over there at Universal Studios Hollywood, or the equivalent over there at Islands of Adventure. It's like, let's just incorporate this stuff and not concern ourselves with providing that ambiance on the day, because obviously we clearly can't, because, you know, unfortunately JPEG made some cuts and all of that. But they didn't. And it was like, no, it could work. Trust us, guys. And I don't think it really necessarily did work for the exact reasons as stated by the theme park philosophy. But there was that moment when they incorporated Fire of the Rising Moons. OG, you know what I'm talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
When Fire of the Rising Moons made its debut, for the first time, it was like, oh my goodness, this actually feels like a Star Wars experience. And it was just fireworks over the spires, right? But with that music that just swells and really captures you and sends you that time and place right in front of the Millennium Falcon, it's like, okay, this finally works. In this one brief little snippet here, while the fireworks presentation is going off for the entire park, here is your Star Wars moment. So we already got our taste of it with Fire of the Rising Moons, but now to see it as ambient tracks that you can kind of stumble into when you go into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I think it's going to heighten that sensation, that connection to Star Wars, but also to people's enjoyment as well.
Yeah, and to your point, Vash, like the music too is like, it's crazy because you know, Avengers Campus, or as Bricky calls it, Avengers Hallway, because it's pretty small, right? But I will say though, for a small land, it's going to be a pretty stacked land with attractions. We'll have the Infinity Defense, the Stark Flight Lab, Mission Breakout, and the Spider-Man ride. That's kind of a lot for such a small area. But it's pretty aesthetically ugly, let's be honest. But one of the it's pretty hideous. But one of the most successful parts, I think, of that land is the vibe. Obviously, they have a lot more character stuff. There's like more kinetic energy, but even the music, like when you walk into Avengers Campus, you hear that Avengers theme. It's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, dude. Like I'm ready, you know? And I get the same vibe at Universal too. Like, you know, when you're walking up to like the Globe and they're blasting the Back to the Future theme song, it's like, oh hell yeah, you know?
You're back,
yeah. And that's what this feels like. It's like, okay, cool, Star Wars, let's do this, you know?
Well, it's the same thing with Epic Universe of Celestial Park. Well, I've heard multiple people say one of the best parts about that park is Celestial Park and the music that just plays. Like it just does something. And music is, I love music in theme parks, and I think this is it's such a no-brainer. Like you guys were saying, like, how did it take 7 years to do this? Like, it seems like this would have been something like after 2 weeks, they're like, oh yeah, we should put music in here. And you're like, no, we're not doing it. It reminds me of like in the sequel trilogy, we're not going to put Han, Luke, and Leia together either. It's like, we're not going to give you what you want here. We're just going to, for whatever reason, it seemed like they were just dead set on making people angry at Lucasfilm and Star Wars. And I still don't understand any of the thinking behind any of those moves. But I suppose here, I would imagine this has been headed up by Josh D'Amaro on some level. He's spoken to Smuggler's Run being a liked but not loved attraction. And obviously you're going to have the Mando and Grogu overlay on that one, which maybe that can help that ride. So I do hope this is the first step in some more things coming, especially when you look at Star Wars. And if you start including prequels and maybe even like you got some of the video games that people would love, like Darth Raven and stuff like that. Like, you could get some really interesting characters in here that really make the land feel alive, especially if it's supposed to be a spaceport. Like there's supposed to be all these different people and creatures in here. It just never felt like that. And short of actually redoing the land, which they're not going to do, things like this with characters and music can go a long ways to fix the ills of this land, I think.
Well, and to Vash's point, they should have recognized right from the get-go, if they couldn't increase the experiential quality of the land with characters due to budget cuts, then they should have switched immediately over to music as the primary vehicle, because the music just informs you that it's just so informative as to the spiritual depth of the saga, and without that music, you just diminish the thematic quality and the immersion and the experience and the feeling. Feel the Force used to be the tagline for Star Wars for multiple decades. And if you can't feel it, then what are we doing? Right. So that should have been an immediate recognition on Walt Disney Imagineering's part. Obviously that wasn't what happened. What I hope to see moving forward is that with Star Wars, at least, they recognize that music is it is a necessary dimension for Star Wars. It cannot be neglected on any level. It has to be carefully woven into the land at all parts and aspects, which is what they're doing right now. If you go watch some of the videos, the interplay and where they're putting music and how they're using that to cue certain memories of Star Wars is very thoughtful. Like they're not just playing the Star Wars intro score throughout the park. It's very smartly placed. Yeah. And I'd like to see that continuing moving forward.
I 100% agree. Going forward, I also want to see Emperor Palpatine. I'm a big Palpatine guy. I love Palpatine.
Yes. That would be cool, actually. I agree.
Right?
That'd be cool.
I love Palpatine. I'm a huge I love his character. He is like the bad guy of all bad guys. Dude, I'm telling you, the Disney adults would hate me, because if I was running this whole thing, he'd have his own float and paint the night. Okay, so
that's funny. No, Palpatine would be a great inclusion right there. We did see C-3PO make his debut at Star Wars Night in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which, but we've seen him before there in limited forms, but with the music and everything like that, just certainly a vibe that is connected there. So that was pretty cool. But look, consistency, and I guess storyline coherency or whatever. It's always going to take a backseat to experience, right? And to having fun. And that's what this land, I think, lacked a little bit, was they couldn't really have fun with it. You see Cars Land out there, where Cars Land, they dabble into multiple movies right there. Yeah. Like if you're walking down Cars Land, you see a little memorial to Doc. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool right there. Obviously, I kind of know where I am. And then you go on the ride and you see Doc there. And it's like, whoa, what happened there? And it's like,
right.
Could you imagine this ride without Doc? You got to have Doc. It's like, okay, fine. It all works out and nobody cares.
Yep.
In this way, it's kind of like don't try to force this timeline that keeps the fun out. It's okay to have fun with Star Wars. I think people expect to do so in your Star Wars land, and so not featuring these iconic characters. I would have some prequel characters in there. That's what I would do. I would have the gambit of characters, like you said, Jared, like Revan, for example. You could have a Revan in there. That would be super cool. Maybe for like a special event or something like that. Mm-hmm. If you want to go ahead and limit him or whatever, you could have Palpatine, or Sheev, or whatever you're calling him right there. That would be cool.
General Grievous would be awesome.
Man. Yeah. and Vash, you bring up a great point, right? And we talked about this on Vash's channel, actually, Vash Sky ParkCast. So everyone, make sure you subscribe, check it out. but we talked about this on your channel about a week or two ago, where I think sometimes these theme park companies, and I think Galaxy's Edge is a perfect example of that, where appreciate the ambition with the immersiveness, but sometimes you can get too immersive, where you suck all the fun out of it, right? It's like, can you imagine if Walt Disney was doing that? Well, we can't have the monorail next to the Matterhorn because, you know, the Swiss Alps doesn't have a monorail. Like, sometimes you just got to have fun and be like, you know what, screw it. I'm doing a Matterhorn. I'm going to have a submarine right underneath that, and we're going to have a monorail, you know? Just have fun with it. Now, look, I do believe there is a time and place to have these immersive experiences, right? But you just can't get too up your own, like, rear end with it, where it's like, it's so immersive that it's like it's too tight, you know.
We can't have Dumbledore in our Harry Potter land because he's passed away in the story we're trying to. I mean, that would be crazy. It'd be like, what?
That's what the Wizarding World is like. I don't really know. I'm sure there is a timeline they're set in, but you don't really know when you're in there. You're just seeing the stuff from the movies. You go on the ride, they're on there. Even Ministry of Magic. You're in 1920s Paris, and yet you go onto a ride where you have 1990s Harry Potter, and you're like, I don't care. It works. It's cool. Like,
nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
In fact, I would go the opposite direction, and I would actually make fun of myself. See, what you do is you introduce Palpatine, and you have a character say, somehow Palpatine has returned. Everybody gets a good laugh. Everybody gets a good laugh, man. And you know what? It's one of those, like, we're included in the joke kind of a thing. Yeah. And Disney would automatically get a pass. I mean, that's plus 5 points. You're actually getting XP, you know? Yeah. So
at D23 2 years ago, when they were making fun of themselves, they had they used Deadpool to make fun of like various things with the Disney parks. Even our dragon, like catching fire and stuff like that. Like, they made fun of it with Deadpool. Like, the fans went nuts for that stuff. Like, sometimes it's good to have a little bit of self, like,
you need to laugh at yourself a little bit. Like, you're not going to get everything perfect, and fan bases are much more willing to give you a little bit more of a pass if you're because you're recognizing an issue by doing it through being funny. It's like, you don't have to come out and grovel and be like, oh, we screwed up, we're so sorry. But you can just joke about it. And it's like, you're talking about theme parks. It doesn't have to be that serious. Like, obviously it's big money and I get it, all that. But at the same time, it's like, you just want people to go have fun. And the other thing I did notice about the May the 4th celebration stuff, did you notice how there's no sequel trilogy stuff that they're featuring? It's all original trilogy.
I saw that.
Like, no prequel stuff. You've got Jabba's ship thing. You've got all these different things. And I was like, that's kind of telling. Like, are they getting the message finally that nobody likes a sequel trilogy? Or at the very least, include other eras. You don't have to just focus on sequel alone.
Exactly.
Well, no, they had a collection of Spirit jerseys, right, that they were selling with all the movies featured. Well, I mean, all the George Lucas movies, and it was through this mystery box kind of thing. I think Marvin Montanaro, when I was talking to him about this, he was like, well, they might not have wanted to include the sequel trilogy because, well, how much fun would that be if you buy into a mystery box, pay $80 for a Spirit jersey, and you get the sequel trilogy, which you maybe didn't like, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, we'll omit those, keep it to the 6. But it is telling how little of the sequel trilogy we're actually getting. I don't think it should be discarded wholesale. I mean, I think there are aspects you can actually bring out, but you shouldn't bring them out to the point where you maybe diminish the appearances by maybe other characters from all over the galaxy, right? I mean, we've had, at least at Disneyland, we've had like I believe Sabine Wren, Hera, I do believe, Ahsoka, and they have run around Star Wars Galaxy's Edge as well. And now you're going to have these new characters here, I guess, returning classics there with Han, Luke, and Leia, and it's like, it's fine. It's all good. I will say, for Star Wars Night, they usually have that lightsaber celebration at Millennium Falcon, and usually it's hosted by Rey. This time it was hosted by Luke. Crowd went wild. Darth Vader makes his appearance. Crowd went wild. Like, it's just like, this is what people want. Give them what they want. It's theme park's not that deep, so.
And it's crazy to show, too, the strength of the Star Wars franchise is still there on some level. Like, as much as this franchise has been beaten down, there's still people that still love these characters. And it's like, if you want to salvage it, like, honestly, if you're thinking in the future, if you want to salvage this land and make Star Wars better, start embracing the things that people want to see and give the people what they want. And if you're talking about a theme park land, a lot of it's going to be based on nostalgia. So just lean into it. Like, you don't, If you make something, listen, if you strike a chord and you hit something that goes wild, then feature it. But their biggest issue was before those movies came out, these are going to be so great, no one's going to care about the original trilogy. And you're like, how insane are you to think you're going to make like the
But that's what Kathleen Kennedy said.
Yeah, it's just like, no, we don't need that. Like, and well, I could go on a whole spiel about Kathleen Kennedy about she's literally talking about how we don't have any source material while sitting next to George Lucas, which is the living source material.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even have comic books. You have tons of comic books. What are you talking about? Like, it's like you just have somebody in charge that just either didn't know or just hated Star Wars is what it seems like.
Well, yeah, and I've always said, some people, and this is subjective. Some people will say Star Wars is dead. I don't think it is. I think it's hibernating. I think it's hibernating. I think people just want good Star Wars, and I think that if you bring good Star Wars, dude, people will come. I mean, even the Star Wars night and all the energy around these changes, people are pumped. I see it all over social media. We just want good Star Wars, and even Mandalorian. Like, I mean, we can forget about the last season. People, I know that was like, not as great as the first two, but like even Mando, look what an impact that made culturally, like that. And and technically that was the original trilogy too, though. It was only a few years after Return of the Jedi. So technically that's even the OT. But if you give us good Star Wars, people will go see that stuff. They'll line up in droves, So I think people love this franchise. They just want good quality content. That's it,
And good merchandise. Merchandising.
That's Spaceballs. The search for more money. No, like, look, I think it was Lauren Connor who has made an appearance on my show as well, along with Marvin. I think they were discussing this kind of blackpilling of Star Wars. Like, is it really dead and so forth? And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you see, like, there's a list of AI generated fan films that are out there on the internet, and they're getting massive receptions, right? They're getting massive viewership. The fervor, I think, is still out there. It's just like OG said, it's dormant. You got to give them good Star Wars to reawaken that. And unfortunately, we just haven't had a lot to kind of hang our hat on right there. But bringing the characters back, and really kind of leaning into nostalgia, I think is a good move, at least for now. I think we'll have to see what Mando and Grogu does in theaters. There's not a lot of hope for that film, but we'll see. Starfighter could really do something right there. But for Star Wars going forward, Kathleen Kennedy thought, our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. That didn't really work out because I think some of those things were mishandled, right? They couldn't maintain the integrity of the franchise, at least from a fan's perspective. Look, it's going to take a little bit, but it's not dead. If you really want to go ahead and relaunch this thing and sell more merchandise, like Theme Park Philosophy astutely brought up, because that's why Disney bought this whole thing in the first place, you're going to have to give the fans what they want at some point.
100%.
Well, if you actually think about too, if they would have bought Star Wars and not made any movies and just maintained the toy line, they would have made more money than they have made currently with the sequel trilogy. That's what's crazy, is they actually, with the sequel trilogy, until a point, I believe Hasbro got into some issues financially due to the fall off of the Star Wars toy sales. Right, so it's kind of interesting, like how much it's fallen. But I agree with you; it's not dead, but it is going to require. Like, I look at this as with Galaxy's Edge here, is like, this is a nice little patchwork, something you should have done long ago. It buys you time in terms of the fan base in the parks, but like, if you really want this to continue to be something that isn't just a dwindling thing or just a nostalgic thing, you do need a creative into this. That's obviously out of the theme park's hands, and that goes into wherever Lucasfilm is now with Dave Filoni in charge of this and seeing where that goes. I'm not, I guess put it this way, I'm not expecting it to be great. I'm hopeful that it can be. It's kind of like a family member that's like going through issues and you're just like, I'm rooting for him, but until I see him actually like kind of do something different, I'm just going to assume it's going to be the same old, but you always hope. You're always like, you know what? I believe in him. I think they can do it. You just have to wait and see if they end up doing it or not.
In the spirit of Star Wars, hope.
Yes. Certainly.
Right now we're in the Cleveland Browns fan stage of being a Star Wars fan.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think, and it's interesting too with the movies and stuff, because Kathleen's gone. And now this is the thing, right? With the movies, there is a gap. There is going to be a gap between, because now Filoni and I forgot the other girl's name. I think Brennan, I believe her name is. Now they're in charge, but there's going to be that residual Kennedy era stuff in the pipeline still. So we're not going to see full Filoni probably for another like 3 years or so. So it's going to be a little bit of a transitionary time, you know? So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
By the way, we got Tones in here. What's up, Tones? He goes, "There's way too much star power in these boxes."
Oh,
Tone. Well, actually, we're gonna Tones got a live stream with Jay Shear tomorrow night. I think OG and I are gonna be on there. Going over Jay's got
cool.
No Vacancy. Is it a re-release? Because it's been out for a bit.
Yeah, it's Jay Shear's short film. It came out like about a year and some change ago, but it was doing the award circuit thing. So he had like restrictions as to like showing it publicly. So I guess that whole like time thing, like it has ended.
Gotcha.
And so now he can show it publicly. So we're gonna have like a little watch party, hang out, talk about the film. It'd be a good time. Tones Poppy, we love you, baby.
Tones is good people. He's good people. Although he still thinks Steph Curry's better than Jordan, but it's fine. He's good people. I'll look past it.
What?
But we also have a 10 from X Voot. Says, "Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you are doing well. How are you feeling about Fast and Furious coaster at Universal Studios Florida? Also, what are your predictions for the supercharged replacement?"
You know, it's interesting, Xvoot. I think that this attraction and the way it was integrated into Hollywood is like a masterclass in like design work and stuff. Like, I mean, what they did with that hill is incredible. I mean, now I think you lose a little bit of that in Florida because you don't have the hill and the coolness of all that stuff. Yeah. But I still think it's going to be a fantastic attraction. But I think Hollywood will probably be a notch or so higher just because, I mean, you got that hillside. You're going in and around those escalators. You get the whole view of the San Fernando Valley. You can see Hollywood and LA from the attraction. I think it's hard to beat that. But the Florida version is going to crush. It will absolutely crush.
Yeah. I mean, they're both Intamin coasters, and Intamin does great work on coasters. So I think from that perspective, they're both going to be really good coasters. And I know people have been like, at least on my channel, anytime you talk about this, they're like, we don't want Fast and Furious. I mean, I get it. I know it's insane. Vin Diesel's, the whole thing's nuts. He can lift a car with one hand, and you're just like, yeah, it makes sense. But
so can you, Jared. So come on, you know.
There was one scene he just lifted up, and I was just like, I would be like, if Superman did that, I'd be like, that's pretty impressive. But it's like, this is a dude, just Dom Toretto just lifting up cars barehanded. It's kind of crazy. But
was his family underneath the car?
That's the thing. I think the family was
the power of family.
He gets him strong. That's like he's Popeye with his spinach. It's like if family's nearby, he gets unfathomable strength. But I think if you're gonna put Fast and Furious on an attraction, it makes sense to put it on a coaster. It doesn't have as much impact, and especially both of them, I think, are going to feature like more of the stunt work behind it. Yeah. So I think that's fine to put it there. I think it'll be better than what was there before with Rip Ride Rockets. I think it'll be an improvement. What happens with Supercharged, though? I keep hearing a lot of different stuff. I keep hearing at first it was going to be maybe Back to the Future. Then now I'm hearing that may not be happening and maybe just letting it sit for a bit. But knowing how Universal, from everything I hear, this all can change within a week. So I don't even really know where it stands and what they do with it, to be quite honest.
They seem to go through ideas quite a bit right there in order to find the best one based on a myriad of metrics right there. Look, you know, Fast and Furious being incorporated in this coaster, I think a lot of us were maybe excited about maybe the possibility of Back to the Future or Ghostbusters or something like that. Unfortunately, it wasn't any of those things. It was Fast and Furious. That being said, though, I mean, like I think Jared pointed this out there, in the form of a coaster, I think it really works. I think those experiences could actually be better as dark rides themselves, you know, maybe with some coaster aspects, but full-on coasters, I think Fast and Furious was a decent choice right there. Obviously, it's still a very big franchise, especially internationally, so that might have played into their mindset and their thinking when using that franchise for that purpose. As far as Supercharged go, I have heard the kind of a night bus thing for Harry Potter because it's right next to kind of that version of the Wizarding World over there at Universal Studios Florida, so that might be pretty interesting. But I think ideas are still percolating as to what they were going to do with that space. Look, I mean, Hollywood is going to have an incredible attraction. Like OG said, that hill, it's amazing. I didn't know that they built like a concrete, almost pillbox foundation right there for the crane. And now they're destroying that because, well, obviously, they've accomplished all their goals right there. It was just like, whoa, this was a crazy construction project right there to build this on the side of hill in California. Crazy stuff. But in Florida, it will have that spike, so it will have some aspects that are unique to it, and it will kind of go in amongst the architecture out there. So it might be pretty cool as well.
I think it's going to have a signature spin thing above kind of the theater right there, or the stage right there, which I think visually would be kind of cool.
That'd be cool.
So I think it'll have some cool aspects to it, but it's not going to be the engineering marvel that the one on the hillside is, undoubtedly.
Yeah. So, in earthquake country, it was crazy, and the scale of it's wild.
Well, and it's wild to me too, how, because if you talk to people that go to these parks and stuff, right? Like, that's the one negative aspect that people always bring up for Universal Hollywood. Oh man, it's a great park, but those escalators are so annoying, Mm-hmm. And Universal was so genius in taking that negative element, right, and utilizing it as a selling point. I mean, it really is kind of brilliant when you think about it,
Yeah, I agree.
I love
any thoughts on this philosophy?
Well, the only thoughts I really have about it, I really don't have a lot of thoughts about the attraction itself. I was actually talking to our buddy Robert White the other day, and we were just kind of speculating what kind of attendance increases this ride would have, and we both came to the conclusion using certain metrics out there and what people are projecting. And I mean, Universal Studios is probably going to get a 5 to 8% attendance bump. Its first full year being open, so that breaks down to about 450 to 700,000 attendees its first year. I mean, look, Universal Studios can use the boost, but what it needs an IP that is going to have sustained attendance increases year over year, not just for a couple of years like Pandora, right? Like, you don't want to invest a lot of money and then see a drop off, right? And that's the problem that these theme parks are running into, is where they can have they can inject a lot of capital into park. They see a nice boost for a couple of years, and then it just falls off a cliff. And I think that threading that needle, right, finding the right IP, finding one that's going to drive attendance, increase it, solid 5 to 10% his first year, but then maintain that, or at least 50 to 75% of that attendance boost for the following years thereafter. I think that's the trick, right? And how do you do that? How do you get really good at that? And the repeatability moving forward is going to be what I think is going to, at least from a cost perspective, I think that's what I would be thinking about if I were the C-suite, if I were thinking about the money aspect of this and not so much the creative aspect. Because I mean, if it just comes down to putting more and more money into these parks, then that strategy, there's no horizon, right? It just keeps on going and going and going, and it's not sustainable, right? So the right IP, the right ride system, and then appealing to the right demographic, right? One of the things that I said before is, the genius thing about Fast and the Furious Supercharged at Hollywood is that it's not really competing against Disney. It's competing against the Six Flags parks, and it's competing against your coaster demographic, right? Because it is a high thrill coaster park that goes over 70 miles per hour. It's going to be the fastest roller coaster at any Universal domestic park. So does that sound like I'm appealing to Disney fans? No, you're appealing to the coaster junkies. And where are the coaster junkies in California? They're not at Disney. You do have themed coasters at Disney, but there is a Venn diagram, right, that Universal is trying to hit, right? That middle between Disney fans and your theme park junkies, and Disney's trying to hit that, or Universal, I'm sorry, is trying to hit that with Fast and the Furious, I believe.
Well, yeah, and I think Universal knows that maybe Disney is not necessarily in that game, and Hollywood has been out of that game only because there's not enough land. And so to get a coaster on the scale of this size for this park, I think is a really great fit for this, and something that fans have been requesting for a long, long time. But Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, which used to occupy the space, now going to be taken up by Fast and the Furious. That was always a coaster that was supposed to be something that drew people into Universal Studios Florida at a time when, remember, Harry Potter was going in Islands of Adventure in 2010, right? And the idea was, hey, you have this coaster that you can see from the exterior of the park. That's what gets you to go in. That's the weaning that gets you in there. The problem is it was so expensive to operate. I mean, they just had crazy costs associated with that. So yes, will they get an attendance boost? Sure. And to your point, theme park philosophy, it won't be necessarily sustainable. However, at least from a monetary aspect, they will be spending less for whatever population boom that they actually have and capacity that they continue to provide via this attraction. So that I think is also working into this. It's like, well, we want a coaster here. We just don't want it to be nearly as expensive as the one before it.
Yeah, well said. And I agree with you, Vash, too. To circle back a little bit, I think a franchise like, for example, like Back to the Future, I don't think you want just a coaster for that. I mean, I think for something like that, I think you want a more showroom scenes and stuff. I mean, maybe you can do like the 88 miles an hour like launch or something. That'd be kind of sick, you know?
Yeah.
But like the bulk of the experience should really be like big, elaborate set scene, like show scenes, and like maybe even some screens in there. That's fine. But really maybe go to the time of the dinosaurs and go in 1955 and then the future and then like the Wild West, right? And really experience that stuff. I think Fast and Furious is a much better IP for just a standard kind of like coaster thrill thing.
That's true.
But yeah, Back to the Future needs a little bit more immersiveness, I think.
I agree with that. And I'm rooting for Back to the Future to come back.
Oh, me too.
Attraction. I want it so bad. But and to your point, philosophy, it's interesting because the Wizarding Worlds, when those popped off, what was wild about it is it boosted Universal's attendance by like 35%, I think, the first year, but they maintained it. And that was the thing that was really interesting is they didn't have that fall. Now, a lot of that is due to Harry Potter and that franchise, but it's also the quality they did. So they do have some experience in that way of, I think they're trying to look at Epic doing the same thing. And then you look at as well, they had another quarter where they had another 25% growth in revenue. And they even said in that earnings call that they're very happy with the parks and they're going to continue to reinvest the profits into the theme parks. So as long as these things are doing well for them, they obviously are not shy about investing more into the parks. And so I think it's a good chance of, and we've talked before about, I think Wizard had been on here before as well, talking about all the things that they have planned for Hollywood. This could be one of the things that's just a succession of things that are coming to try and boost up Hollywood, kind of like what they've done with Orlando. They're just limited more in Hollywood just due to the, they don't have the space that they have in Orlando for a lot of this stuff.
Well, and the other thing too, we're going to talk about FanFest tonight, and I'm really excited about that because that was an interesting event. But the great thing about things like FanFest is that you can kind of beta test these franchises a little bit, right? You can beta test. You can utilize it. Oh, how does Scooby do? Right? How does Scooby do?
I want to get into that because I think that's exactly what those events are, and I think it's genius to monetize essentially like a group test study to see what people want. And it's a smart thing to do. I definitely agree with that. But speaking, actually, let's go and move into Universal FanFest since we brought that up. That'd be a nice little segue here. So now I know, Vash, you had talked about this before. I talked a little bit about it, and obviously I've never been. Last year with Back to the Future, I had major FOMO. My wife had FOMO. It's one of those things I definitely want to go check it out. It seems like a really intriguing event, but this is the second year of this. And correct me if I'm wrong, I essentially had taken a Halloween Horror Nights concept and kind of applied this to more of a, pop culture fan type of event with similar types of set pieces and things like that. But OG, you went. So compared to last year to this year, like, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's improving? And, like, we can also get into a whole thing, like, what are they testing? What might be coming that we're kind of see them do with FanFest?
Yeah, I think overall, it was better. I agree with Wizard in the chat where I think overall this year was better than last year. I will say, though, I did miss Back to the Future because it was really cool to go down into Hill Valley and experience that, right? But, like, I'm telling you, I mean, that One Piece, well, first of all, One Piece as a franchise is like a movement, okay? I mean, it is huge. It's huge, insanely popular. And what they did with the Waterworld Theater with that One Piece show is like absolutely insane, you guys. I'm telling you, they utilized all kinds of like effects and like stunt show tricks, so to speak, where the guy, I don't know all the names of the characters. I'm not familiar with the franchise, but like he would like teleport from different parts of the stage. One dude's like leg caught on fire. He was fighting people with his leg on fire. And there was a point where the guy was being shot at with like this like rapid fire gun. He was catching the bullets in his chest, and then he does this and he shoots the bullets back at the bad guys and stuff. I'm like, dude, this is insane. What are we doing here? You know, that show was absolutely bonkers. So I loved FanFest this year. I thought it was a really, really good time. Sailor Moon, the gal who plays her was perfect casting for her. Everyone loves her so much. She was fantastic. 2-hour wait just to take a picture with her. So I think they had a really successful event. I do have some criticisms of some of the operational stuff. And Vash, you and I talked about it on the phone the other night, but some of the operational stuff, it's going to need some kind of like some working out. The queuing for that One Piece stunt show was not the greatest. A lot of confusion, team members, things like that. But she was fantastic. I mean, really, really great. Overall though, that was a great event. And actually, it was really, really busy. And I was excited to see that. I mean, as long as they can keep that up, I mean, I think we'll probably see it again next year. But what do you guys think?
I have been a big proponent for FanFest nights because, like you said, OG and Jared, I believe, and Think Park Philosopher, I think you all made this point, but it's this great testing ground. You see the resonance that these franchises have in the current era, right? And who goes wild for what. One Piece, I mean, I think really took Universal by surprise last year. They actually had to make a way for One Piece merchandise to cut into the Back to the Future merchandise a little bit because it was just so popular. Everybody was wearing straw hats and everything like that. So that is really, really cool. Investing into bringing them into Waterworld, I think, was a great choice. And I think that was one of the things that was missing from FanFest maybe last year that this year does have this kind of this big time show, right, that people could actually go to, see performed, and then leave. Now, I did hear operationally a little bit difficult because so many people were enthusiastic that they just bum rushed that theater and everything like that. And it's, they're going to have to dial that in a little bit. Also, too, Harry Potter, I think, really went off strong. Really great with the hippogriff and everything like that. And animatronic that's moving there. Heard a lot of great things for that side of things, which is really, really good. The video, I think, plays very, very well on social media, and 2-hour waits a lot of times for that experience right there, which is pretty high. And that's kind of the nature of these kind of walkthrough experiences, right? They're kind of low capacity. You're going to have big groups to go through, but the bigger group you have, not as intimate as an experience for every single showing that plays out. So there's some balancing act there. But I think the Harry Potter stuff was looked at very fondly this year, as opposed to maybe some character interactions that they had last year. So that's good. Nothing in place of Star Trek. I don't think right there. They did have Sailor Moon, big smash hit. They didn't really have anything that spoke to the female audience in particular. So to bring in like a female anime audience right there with Sailor Moon, good choice in my opinion, and it really did play strong. 2-hour waits for Sailor Moon, like you said, OG. That's tremendous right there. They also utilized new areas that they provided for this time around, like Jurassic Park, for example. And boy, oh boy, those actors make that experience. Crazy stuff right there. It's like, you see that Ian Malcolm that they have there. It's like Jeff Goldblum, from the 90s, come back to life. It's crazy how accurate they have that guy there. You're seeing a little bit of that Waterworld Sun Show on screen right now, provided by the Cali Bay. That's really, really cool. So Jurassic Park, also good. Dungeons & Dragons was a returning favorite that they spruced up with new lighting effects and so forth. So good stuff right there. The only thing I think was missing this year is that the headliner. I just don't know if Scooby-Doo Meets the Monsters was as big as and as well received universally as Back to the Future was. I heard a lot of reports from Ivan, for example, over there. He does work with Park Hop and Drunk 3PO over there. Shout out to him. He was there, and he kind of had the same feeling that I did. It just wasn't a strong enough headliner, I don't think, to really captivate audiences in the same way that Back to the Future did. We heard this from Kevin Heimbach. He had some similar thoughts as expressed on Ordinary Adventures. Ordinary Adventures had a lot of the same thoughts as well. It just didn't resonate as much. And my concern was, social media-wise, I don't think it necessarily played as well as Back to the Future. Back to the Future, you capture that on a phone right there. And no matter the context, people get what's going on, they get what's happening. Versus, I think the experiential driven stuff with Scooby-Doo, right, and the mysteries and so forth. That's something that you have to be there for. I don't know how well it plays on social media, and so I didn't see the fervor, social media wise, that I saw for Back to the Future last year. And when you have a headliner, you know, it really has to be strong. I don't know if they necessarily nailed it. Also, too, we've seen some photos of like the sandwich in the bag there. That's obviously not a good look for Universal and their food program. They've really wanted to up that. Not really a great showcase right there. And yeah, I mean, Scooby-Doo, I think really could have been played stronger than it was. And unfortunately, I think they dropped the ball a little bit right there. But other than that, this year's FanFest presentation, when it came to all of these special things, I think it was really cool. I think, honestly, Jurassic Park better than Star Trek, if you're looking for comparisons right there. I think, Jujutsu Kaisen, I did like that experience, but I can definitely see the appeal of Sailor Moon. One Piece getting a big-time show. Some anime fans were disappointed last year that One Piece wasn't featured more heavily than it was. And I think they really met that expectation with that Waterworld show. So overall, pretty good. They just would have nailed it had they had a Back to the Future equivalent this year. That was the only way they came up short, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, great analysis. And honestly, Jurassic Park was crazy. I mean, and I was really surprised because you have those raptors, which are obviously like people in those suits, right?
Right.
And it's a theme park, right? So I'm thinking, okay, they're going to come out and the raptor handlers it's going to be very choreographed. It's going to appear very choreographed, I figured. Very slow moving, like dodging and but it wasn't. I mean, it was like they were really they were swinging their tails and these guys were really ducking and stuff. I was like, this is really, really cool. This is really, really cool. I loved it. And you're right, Vash, the Ian Malcolm, dude.
I was going to say the footage I saw of the Ian Malcolm was it looked like Jeff Goldblum. It was very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane. Now, in regards to Scooby, it's a mixed bag for me. Now it was very busy down there. I mean, it was really, really busy. I do appreciate Universal thinking outside the box, right? Like you have this great franchise, Scooby, the great franchise of the monsters, and combining those two really did seem like a natural fit. I do appreciate that. I think if I had one criticism though with that area, and this is me, I'm not into the whole LARPing, be part of the experience thing. I didn't really care about the whole figuring out the mystery and all that.
Yeah.
Even with the Star Cruiser stuff, that was one of the things that turned me off to it was but I don't really want to do the work. I just want to go and just experience.
Not looking for a second job.
A little more passive with your theme park experience.
completely. And so I really wasn't into going in there and trying to figure out the mystery and all that. But I think overall it was well done. I do like though the fact that you're able to go down into that old Europe area. You don't really get to do that normally. That's kind of cool. And they film a lot of stuff in that little area with the that Kristen Bell show. Was it Happy Place or Good Place or something like that?
The Good Place,
yeah.
The Good Place and stuff. So that was kind of cool walking through it. I think a lot of the projection mapping was really great. You would have the monster eyes in the windows and stuff. That was really, really cool. But I do think the Scooby Monsters thing is a one and done. I don't think Robert's funny. Yeah, I'm lazy like a sloth. I am. I am. I don't want to work
posing for the camera too. Just always got to be ready.
Always got to be ready. Right. Always got to be ready. But yeah, overall, I love the event. But I don't think Scooby's going to return next year. I really don't. But I could be wrong.
Was the Scooby and monster stuff? And if you guys talk about this, my apologies. I didn't tell my kids goodnight. It seemed to me from the footage I saw of maybe a little campy. I don't know if that's a good description of it, though.
Yes. I think that's an accurate description. Yeah. I mean, they were trying to go with the psychedelic theme, and really try to play that 60s and 70s vibe there that is brought on with Scooby-Doo. But then you had the monsters. And I don't know if that was the approach that I think they should have leaned into necessarily. I think maybe more of a spooky vibe, especially playing to Little Europe and it played host to the 1920s, 30s, and 40s monsters films, you know, and then having the Scooby-Doo characters actually, you know, within this kind of atmosphere as created by the monsters, I think maybe would have played just a little bit better for the entire vibe right there, because it just seemed like the monsters were a little bit tacked on, and that was really unfortunate to see. I thought they would really be incorporated into the event a little bit more than they were. Again, I haven't experienced it myself, but this was the feedback that I kept hearing over and over again from people who had experienced this particular aspect of the event, and I don't think they got the mix quite right in this case, which is unfortunate because I think there's a lot of potential there. And it's not to say that there wasn't fun to be had. I think the moment where they actually reveal the mystery and reveal actually who was at work here this entire time, and obviously says the line, "I could have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you meddling kids," and so forth. That's kind of a fun moment, right? But I just think it needed more of those to really round out that experience. And yeah, they place a lot of emphasis on, hey, here's this brochure to go through and solve this mystery, and it's like, wow, this is homework. I don't know if I necessarily want to do this, which was a criticism I heard as well.
It's interesting because, you look at this, like, how long did it take them to really get Halloween Horror Nights for, like, dialed in, where it's just like a very consistently good, it maybe great event. You could say the same thing for this. And what's interesting is even with Disney, so you look at the Magic Kingdom and their Halloween and Christmas parties, those things run like clockwork. They don't change much, but they're very consistent parties that people enjoy. But then they introduced Jollywood Nights, and it was like, they didn't know how to throw a party. They didn't know how to do it. And then you find out like it was different teams. So it's like, even within the same company, sometimes it takes some time to kind of get their stride with some of these events. And Jollywood Nights has improved. They've definitely made it improve. The first year was not good. We went to the very first one, and if it wasn't for the fact that we went with friends and had a good time with our friends, the event itself just was not worth the money. It just was kind of a mess. Yeah. But it's funny because you can see them if they continually do these. You give them a handful of years, probably really nail this down, and this is a much better event than what we've even seen the past 2 years, at least potentially, given what we know they're able to do with Halloween Horror Nights and bring that same level.
Well, I'm telling you, and I mean, I got into this event for $40 with my annual pass. $40. I'm telling you, dude, look at this. Okay. It was crazy. And then the One Piece show alone is worth $40. Okay. An insane value for like what you're spending. Even if you pay full price, it's only like what, 80 or $100 or something like that. I mean, it's a great event. It really, really is. And I agree with you, Jared. I do believe Universal is really good at listening and adjusting, right? Because even this year, the fans wanted more One Piece, and we got it in a big way, So whatever the feedback is this year, I'm sure they're going to adjust, and we'll get whatever it is for next year. I will say this though, the anime isn't going anywhere because that anime stuff was absolutely crushing it. And I will also give a shout out to Universal because that one chick with the orange hair, Nami, I think her name is, Disney would never in their parks. They'd give her a trench coat or a Spirit jersey. They would not let her wear that.
That is very true. Do you think this is leading toward them? And we've speculated this before, but like doing something more permanent with anime in the parks. Like obviously this second year, you have even more anime, more One Piece. I do feel like you were saying, it's like a test screening of an active audience. What do you want? You see the reaction to it. If you're curious about, and I can understand with anime, like, it's popular, but you just don't know if it's going to hit in a theme park, and you don't want to take the risk of building a whole ride or a land, spending millions on these things. Doing it in this way, it's smart to get a feel for it, and then you feel more comfortable about like, okay, let's allocate real capital to this because we've actually tested this. I do get the impression that this is part of what this event is, and if that's also the case, it's also genius just because you can make money while also figuring out what your audience wants and then give them even better stuff in the parks. So I think that potentially could be a really good thing. And even though I'm not an anime person, I understand how popular it is, and I think what I've seen of One Piece and talking about Pokemon come to the parks, I think these things are going to be huge for Universal. And really, Disney doesn't have an answer for that. Like, they're not going to get into anime unless they make their own, which is going to be very different from these, big anime properties.
Yes, the only anime that I think Disney has done that's been pretty cool, but they'll never do it in the parks. It's way too niche-y. but like Star Wars Visions is actually really good, like really good.
Okay.
And that's anime, but I don't see Disney making an attraction based on that stuff. It's never going to happen. But like, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the anime stuff is huge. I love the fact that they're leaning into it. I love the fact that Universal has the guts to do that. I love the fact that you go into Jujutsu Kaisen or the Sailor Moon 3D show and it's all in Japanese. I mean, that takes a lot of balls to do that. I mean, that's crazy to me, right? I love that. And I love the ambition. So now I will say this too, and I've said it before. I think the Disney after hours events are really, really lackluster. I made a video on it just the other day. I think for the most part, they're really disappointing. Now, to be fair to Disney, it does seem like Star Wars night was really solid. I mean, at least what we're seeing, the first night was pretty good. I mean, I will say that. Maybe they're starting to improve. Maybe they're getting the message that Universal's catching up. I don't know. But for the most part, the ones I've done, whether it be Oogie Boogie or 90s nights, I don't know. They just kind of fall flat. So Universal right now, for me, is the after hours king. They are crushing it. And this girl right here, we actually met her, Tommy Toon and I. And actually, Tommy has a great picture with her. If I would send you guys a picture of Tommy and Daphne, you would think they were dating. It was fantastic. The chemistry was
that's pretty cool.
Tommy always gets good pictures with characters too. He's always like, he just has that vibe about him. Just acts like he's already known him. He's good at that. We do have a couple of supers here. We have a 20 from Valientes. Says, I went 3 nights. I only did Scooby-Doo first night. I did Jurassic, One Piece, Yoshi, Sailor Moon, Harry Potter, themed food included every single night. I did Back to the Future every night I went in 2025. That was 1 of 2. And then he has another 20. Thank you, Valientes. I would do Scooby more times if it was more streamlined, more structure with improv like Back to the Future and less involvement.
That's fair. Yeah, I think Scooby was a really brilliant concept. I think it could use some tweaking though, for sure. But yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. Now, EPT X Protector is saying that Theme Park Wizard said a permanent Pokemon land is coming to Universal Hollywood.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah, so Universal is doubling down on anime. I don't know if Pokemon is it Pokemon anime, kind of, right?
It has an anime aspect to it, I think. Like obviously the video games, but I'm pretty sure it does, but I'm not 100% sure.
It has an anime series, right? So whenever you see visualizations, it's either the games or the anime itself. So there is that component to it, but it's not strictly. I don't think a lot of people strictly view it as just a single anime property, like they do maybe One Piece, for example.
Yeah, it was maybe like a bridge thing with a video game with a little bit of anime. Like if you're going to dip your toes in, given how big Pokemon is anyway, it's a good idea to get into that for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm telling you, Pokemon is just bags of money, bro.
oh
my goodness.
I was shocked when I learned a couple of weeks ago how it's the number 1 media franchise, and it's not even close of how big Pokemon is. I think it's even bigger than Nintendo itself, which Nintendo's like part owner of it, which is kind of wild. But I never played them as kids or anything like that, but it's I think undoubtedly it's going to be a major boom for Universal. I've said before, I think Nintendo potentially could be bigger for Universal than the Wizarding Worlds were, even just given how big Nintendo is. You throw Pokemon into that mix, like that's just going to be like rocket fuel on the park's growth, I think, with those properties coming into the parks.
No, 100%. Now, one thing that was really clever about the Scooby Monsters thing is these are real sets, right? So they're facades in the front, so it looks like a European town in the front, but the backside is just a cement wall because this is for real filming. It was really clever, and it's kind of hard to see in the video, but you can kind of see it where like they would project. Like here's Frankenstein. They'll project like old Frankenstein footage from the movie from like the 20s or 30s on that giant concrete wall, and it was a really cool sort of backdrop to the monster standing there. I thought it was really cool. I really like that a lot. A creative use of a blank space, basically. You know?
I want to touch on that because what I've noticed from this year and last year is that their aesthetic language has become a lot more complex this year. They're using a lot more projections, a lot more dynamic sets, and they're really leaning into the stagecraft, which is the Universal's strong point. And I know a lot of people really enjoy the performances that are at Disney, but I hate to tell you, objectively, Universal just has better stagecraft. They have better practical effects. They see. So Disney, I like to think of. Do you guys decorate for Christmas or Halloween at all?
Oh yeah. Well, more for Christmas, but a little bit of Halloween.
Okay, so I can get big into decorating the outside of the house. And the one thing about decorating is, especially if you're kind of like limited on time and funds, is that you find the perfect aesthetics and then you try to repeat that year over year just out of simplicity, right? That's Disney. Like Disney spent a lot of years perfecting decorating their the Magic Kingdom or Disneyland for their after hours events, and they said, okay, we've got it. Like we've got the perfect decoration. Okay. And once you get fixated on that, it's kind of hard to leave that because it requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of, okay, right? Universal isn't afraid, in my opinion, to try something different year over year at the expense of investing more money. I mean, every time they do a Universal Halloween Horror Nights house, it's $1 million house, each one.
Yeah.
And that's just one house, right? This is across multiple parks, right? So they're investing tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the Halloween Horror Night global event. And so they're used to that, right? Like this is something that is just normal for Universal Creative and not for Disney. And so they have the, go ahead, Vash.
No, I was just going to say that comes down to how Disney and Universal work and how they're different, right? So Disney, when they bankroll something, it's like, okay, we're looking at this in kind of like a 5-year or 10-year capital investment, right? And so it's like if we invest in like Villains Grove, for example, for Ookie Boogie Bash, that's the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future because that was the initial investment made. Versus like I think this is a brilliant point. For like Halloween Horror Nights, Universal's already kind of used to re-engaging with the audience by switching things up. And they might have a house for a couple of years, but they always have new ones. They always switch stuff out. And yeah, like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, we heard that they really invested more into that experience than they did last year. That's kind of consistent with the philosophy of we can make this better, we can do more. We see some great stagecraft with like the Hippogriff experience right there. Some aspects of Scooby-Doo. Also, too, like is it the Water World, One Piece show? Really, really great stagecraft there. That's reutilizing assets that would be originally used for one show. Now you're going ahead and making it dual purpose by using it for another show on the same day. And it's done really, really well, right? You almost don't notice the transition from one event to the other. Again, really great stagecraft, getting the most out of what you actually do, but also too switching things up when appropriate. It's one of the things that, Back to the Future had. They had like a little projection show with a little bit of lightning, but they didn't have much more than that. They really kind of leaned into it a little bit more this year. And really brought out those projections and those effects and so forth, and really did make a big splash. Jurassic Park, by the way, awesome stuff. I just would have liked a little bit more stagecraft with this event, but definitely plays better at night because of where it's located than the day.
Yeah,
I think this dynamic approach, what it's going to do, is going to allow Universal to really leap forward when it comes to these after hours events. It's not just going to be like a very subtle thing. Like people are going to really notice, like, Universal is doing something that is bigger, it's bolder, it changes every year, and it's getting better as it progresses. To Jared's point about how, after 4 or 5 years, Universal Halloween Horror Nights, they really dialed in, they got it, they unlocked what it is that they were trying to do. And I think FanFest is going to do the same thing. I mean, this year is a big jump from last year in terms of how they're able, the stagecraft, they're really leaning into it, which is leaning into their strengths. And I think that when it comes to where people are going to want to spend their money, Universal is going to be the place. I mean, like, I'm not even considering, I'm going to admit, I've never been a Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. There's nothing there for me. Okay. But FanFest, I'm there. This is something I can invest my money in. I can probably buy some merchandise from that. I love the Universal monsters. I like what they're doing with the shadow work. I mean, this is really clever. I mean, look at this. This is Universal through and through, right? And so there's a lot of branding. There's no brand dilution, despite the fact that they're incorporating a lot of anime and stuff. This is like a very Universal thing to do, which is, I think, really important as well. Like, be able to maintain the integrity of your brand and not just, placating to whatever it is that everybody's into, whether it's anime or whatever. You're really maintaining that core Universal, aesthetic, which it's very important. So
yeah. Well, I would just point out as well, like, it's kind of insane every year for Halloween Horror Nights and now for FanFest. I mean, they're redoing this And like you were saying, Disney reuses this stuff. Like it's a big production. We did the Behind the Scream tour 2 years ago, and all the work that goes into those houses and the detail that most people will never see. And really, every house has a story that you don't really pick up on, but they put in that work. Like it's impressive on the level in which they do this stuff, and it's not easy to do.
Right.
And I am really excited. Like I do hope this comes to Orlando. I know Theme Park Wizard has talked about there were rumblings that might happen this year. I do think more than likely it will make its way to Orlando. And I think I agree with OG, doing the Disney after hours stuff. Like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, unless you have kids, it's probably just something, it's like, it's not going to appeal to a lot of people. Like we've done it with our kids. We're going to do it this year with our kids and my brother's, family. But it's different than Universal because every year it's different. Like you're getting something new every year. And I think that it definitely has more repeatability and gives you a little bit more like excitement about these events. And I think they're only going to get better. I mean, they've already proven they can do it with Halloween Horror Nights. There's no reason to think they won't be able to do it on that same level for FanFest in the future.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I mean, Universal, they tap into something really special and really unique here. And I'm with you, theme park philosophy. Like a lot of the Disney stuff, like the Mickey Not So Scary, I got no interest. And I get it. Like if I had like kiddos, like if I had like a toddler or something, like for sure I would go, right?
Yep.
But I don't. So for me, this is more like what I would rather. I'd much rather spend my money on a FanFest or an HHN and go that route. Disney could do stuff like this though. I mean, they have these secondary parks, and I don't understand why they don't lean into that. You have DCA. You can get a little edgier with a DCA. You can do maybe like shout out to Mr. Webba, by the way. This is his idea. I don't want to take credit for it. But like Mr. Webba was saying, you can do like an Alien versus Predator maze at DCA. Now, obviously, you wouldn't have blood splatters or anything too crazy, but like a jump scare kind of thing, I mean, that's why you have a secondary gate, so you don't put it in Disneyland, right? Why build DCA if you're just gonna have the same kind of demo for both? You need to expand. So I would love like a little edgier for Oogie Boogie Bash and take some risks.
I think this probably comes down to a company trying to gain market share. They're a little hungrier. Disney, and you've talked about before as well. You go to Disneyland, they have a 3 miles long. Like they kind of feel like they can kind of do whatever, and people are going to flock to it. And so they don't have I guess you could just say they're not hungry in that way. They're on the top of it. So it's just like, well, why do we need to do these things? We don't have to. We don't have to spend this money because we're probably going to make the same amount of money no matter what we do, which is why I think competition is great, because if Universal continues to grow out in Hollywood, these events get better. It could force Disney to have to make some changes if Universal is completely dominating these after hours types of events. And so I think competition. I love it.
Yeah.
I think they're already evaluating because, like OG astutely pointed out right there, with his annual pass, he was able to get in here for $40. Now compare that to like something like Star Wars Night, for example, where the minimum is $159. Get a discount with annual pass. That's kind of the difference, right? And so, in terms of value, I mean, it is really right here. Look, I personally think that this is the best after hours themed experience that you can actually get right now. I like this a little bit better than HHN. I like this a little bit better than Not Scary Farm, for example, or all of the equivalents at Disney and all these other parks, and even including Universal's lineup. I think this is the very best one. It really does hit this kind of niche and this atmosphere and this vibe that we've not seen replicated quite in this way. And it's very much appreciated by fans that they lean into these franchises and bring in so many in, whether they be with Universal or not. I think it's really, really cool. And I really do hope that this event grows right here. That's why I was so critical in my original analysis of this, is because I want to see this come back, and Universal needs that feedback in order to really keep this event going right there. So I think we have given them the feedback. They've been very receptive to it, which is very, very good. And big shout out to Ivan, by the way. He really helped me to kind of round out my coverage here, because I haven't seen this event just yet. He was really taking the time, expressing his opinions and so forth. And so I want to go ahead and have a big shout out to him, obviously, with those $40 in super chats. Thank you so much, good sir.
I kind of want to piggyback on Vash's point about the growth potential here. Okay, so like let's think about the kind of attendance that Halloween Horror Nights brings to Orlando alone. All right, you're talking about an event that brings over 1.5 million guests just for Halloween Horror Nights. To put that into perspective, you're talking about 10 to 12% of Universal's annual attendance brought for just one event, not not counting regular attendees. Okay. Now we're talking about FanFest, which it is not bound by a single genre, which is horror. It is unbound by it. It is now going to every genre, global genres like anime, which is even bigger than horror, much bigger. Okay. So Universal's looking at the growth potential of this, and they're thinking 1.5 million for an event might be a small number. Okay. That's, I think long term, this is a strategy. And I think $40, OG, go ahead and, appreciate that you're only paying $40 for this event right now, because once this thing takes off, dude, I think we're going to be looking at $150 tickets. And I actually I think I prefer this to Halloween Horror Nights now as well. Look, I'm an HHN alumni. All right, I've been going since the early 2000s. So I've been to over half of the events, and I'm kind of over it. I think Halloween Horror Nights suffers a lot of the same problems that those legacy after hours events suffer over at Disney, where they've gotten comfortable with the formula and it works for them, and they can increase prices year over year, and people are just happy paying it, despite the fact that the quality has kind of been flat for the last, 10 years. Right. With some wins here and there, I always go for Ghostbusters, or Evil Dead. Right. But this is going to be something fresh. And I think that it's going to be quite a while before, FanFest reaches any sort of stagnation. But yeah, going back to Vash's original point about the growth, huge growth potential. This could be a 2 to 3 million person event within the next 5 years, which is, that's massive.
And you're right, because it's not bound by a single genre. You can, and they could do third-party licensing deals for events like they do for Halloween Horror Nights. They could really open this stuff up. I agree. Now, I'm a late bloomer to Halloween Horror Nights. I've only gone like the past 5 years. I hate the horror genre. I'm like OG, but I love Halloween Horror Nights because the vibe of it's a cool event. Sure. But I will never watch these movies that these houses are based on. But if you give me like a Transformers and a FanFest, you're gonna I'll take my money. Like I will just go do this. And even when you think about the value of it too, like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, the highest price ticket I believe is like $235 this year, somewhere around there, maybe $250. And you're talking Halloween Horror Nights still, even as big as it is, some nights you can get it for $80-$90. And so granted, it's gonna be crazy busy, but in some nights are more expensive than others. But I think even with that event, the value is still there compared to say Disney's. And they have a real potential here if they especially bring this to both coasts and what they could really do with it. I agree. I think it could be not only attractions and lands that they bring, but stuff like this could be a way to which to grow. That's kind of, I don't know if Disney grows through these events. It's maybe more of a fan service thing for Disney, but they could really see some growth from these type of events if they really start nailing these.
Well, and it's interesting, right? So in terms of IP, right? So you have FanFest this year, which taps into some pretty big IPs here. I mean, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World is still a mega franchise. Those movies are still doing $1 billion, right?
It's crazy.
You have the anime stuff, which is like crazy popular, right? And it's like, it's weird because Disney, their most recent event, we're in Star Wars night now, but the most recent event recently was Disney Channel night. Like Disney Channel hasn't been relevant since like 1998. Okay. Like no one cares about Disney Channel. Like, I don't understand that. Like when you have your competition bringing out things like One Piece and Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
How do you respond with Disney Channel night? No one cares.
Yeah. I don't know. And to your point, they do have like Disney Twisted Wonderland, the animation. That's the other anime I was thinking of that Disney has done right there. But they just don't have like anime. I think fits a very particular part of the market that Disney doesn't really have an answer for, or can't cater to in the same way that Universal can. And that's the thing. To your point, OG, it's like when you have these big anime. Oh, by the way, there are over 1,000 episodes of One Piece. It's huge. It's so big. And Sailor Moon was part of the wave of manga adaptation originally back in the 90s. Manga was not accepted by the West for a long time until Sailor Moon came out, and then that completely changed the entire course of history from then on when it comes to Japanese influence and culture. Okay, these are huge, and Pokemon, we know how big that is. It's like Disney. Like, you know, you can keep mining nostalgia, sure. You can maybe keep mining your old franchises, but at a certain point, you are going to slip into that irrelevance if you can't get together here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's crazy to watch it. It really, really is.
OG, we've all talked this before, but Valientes has a good point. They got to dig into their Universal Directors catalog. Also, get Warner Brothers involved. Batman backlot experience. If you start throwing superheroes into this, dude, like a Gotham City walkthrough thing, or or Arkham Asylum, dude. I mean, and I would love to know where the status of there was. Remember, months ago, Bloomberg talked about how the DC rights might be going to Comcast, right before all the Warner Brothers stuff really got hot with who was going to buy it. Right. I haven't heard any fault to that, but man, if they are able to do that, like, if you had DC stuff at this event, I mean,
well, Vash, we have the what they call the Metro sets.
Yes,
literally, that's where they film all like the New York scenes in movies is on these Universal Metro sets.
Oh, absolutely, man!
In the banger Batman event in there,
it would be absolutely fantastic. If Warner Brothers themselves wanted to get into this game, which is possible, the original Batman sets are still on their back lot over there, so you could have something that was very, very locked in or keyed into to that whole thing. That could be very cool. But no, Hitchcock, you could do a lot of stuff with that, as Ivan has brought out, and also too, Ivan's brought out, like, hey, you could have Jaws. Amity Island does exist on the back lot. Yep. Could you incorporate something like that? I understand it'd be a little bit difficult because it's not necessarily for large gathering events, but you can see the potential right there, right? So, like, if you get in, and maybe Christopher Nolan, for example, he's doing work for Universal now, maybe you can incorporate some of his stuff. It's just endless. It's endless what this can actually turn into. It's really, really cool.
Yeah,
no, it absolutely is. And Universal right now has I'm assuming a great working relationship with Warner Brothers. The Scooby stuff is Warner Brothers.
Yep.
They already dipped their toe with the WB stuff already.
Yeah.
You know? So
And Sorceress has a really good point. She goes, and you know what else? FanFest Nights also has a bigger appeal for international guests because Halloween itself is not as popular in many other countries.
That's a good point.
The IPs are. That's a really good point that it could appeal to. I mean, obviously Halloween Horror Nights is still going to be a flagship thing they do, but this this thing opens you up to way more things that you could do.
And that's the point I was making, is it's not a niche. I mean, this is not limited by any sort of, this is all the genres, and Universal knows that. And it's only a matter of time before they have a backlot Batman experience, because the amount of people, one thing I was thinking about earlier today, I was thinking about how the weekend was successful at Halloween Horror Nights. They actually had it, I think, on both coasts now. I mean, the weekend is, I mean, they're massive, right? Like if you look at the top 10 artists of all time, they're somewhere in the top 10. Imagine if they brought Michael Jackson.
Oh my
man. Yeah.
That's it. It's over.
It's over. It's over, dude. Yeah. I mean, especially if you're bringing like a Moonwalker show with fireworks. I forget it, dude. You know how many Michael Jackson fans are out there that would come to this event dressed like Michael Jackson? I mean,
that's what's crazy is, I mean, the Michael Jackson movie is being as big as it is, and the relevance he still carries with culture. And I agree, that would be absolutely massive. That'd be
Here's the crazy part about all of this. Disney could have capitalized on this very easily. Remember, they had the 70 Years of Favorites night that they had at Disneyland right there. Well, in their archive, they have Captain EO, and they have the theater in Tomorrowland. What are you doing? Why couldn't you brought Captain EO for a limited time run as part of 70 Nights of Favorites? It's like, come on. You had it right there, Disney, on a silver platter. Didn't pursue it. Now the Michael thing is the biggest thing since sliced bread again, which, you know, as the king of pop, of course he would be.
Yep.
Yeah, no, Michael's wild. And I think we're going to talk about Michael today, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But like Michael Jackson, Jared, you and I talked about this with Seymour the other day, where it's like he's almost like his own genre.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's Michael.
And the more stuff I've learned, like I can't say I knew a lot. I mean, you know of Michael Jackson as a kid. I didn't know how big he really was. And then you look at some of the business stuff he was doing at the time, which was kind of unheard of. He was not only as big as he was culturally, but just really smart about the business stuff he was doing. I mean, at one point, he bought the Beatles catalog, and I think he was also he was talking about buying something else that would have just been, I can't remember what it is now.
Marvel.
What was it?
Marvel.
Yes, Marvel. Like, can
There's
you imagine
rumor that he was
Michael
gonna-
Jackson
it was-
with Marvel? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
just, you know,
It
it's
could have
kinda
been one of the
wild.
biggest board members.
Well, let me ask you guys this, okay? Because this is kind of a little bit outside the box, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think about it. Captain EO, for me at least, and maybe you guys disagree, but like for me, I always felt Captain EO felt very Star Wars adjacent. Like it
Yes.
kind of feels
Yeah.
like it's in that universe.
But do you know
Mhm.
why, right? I mean, George Lucas made it.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Exactly. So would you guys be okay with them incorporating some of the Captain EO stuff in like a Star Wars night, like the little furball thing and all that?
100%.
Dude,
That'd be
100%. Make Michael Jackson an official part of the canon of Star Wars? Yes, of course, dude. Michael Jackson with Luke Skywalker meet and greet. Hello, done. It's a
Come on,
done
I
deal,
said
dude.
before,
It's a
it
winner.
doesn't have to make sense. It just can be fun and cool.
That's
Exactly.
it.
That's fun
That's it.
and that's cool. I want to see that. Like, I want to see Michael Jackson moonwalk and Luke just being, or Darth Vader just being like, I don't know what to do here. Like,
It's like that Star-Lord moment right there. That's good stuff. Nah, Cap Neo. I mean, I remember when it had that short little run when when Michael unfortunately passed away right there, and there was a lot of people that came out, at least initially, right? It wasn't sustainable, of course. It kind of fell off, as all theater shows do, unfortunately. But having been there for a few Star Wars nights, or maybe 70 years of favorites or whatever, that could have been a big hit. Dang it! Disney, come on, give us what we want.
Come on. I think the little fur ball, and Vash, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the little fur ball from Captain EO, didn't like his species or something make an appearance on Skeleton Crew?
Skeleton Crew, yeah, I think you're right about that. It's Fuzzball.
Fuzzball,
I
yeah.
think I have a Fuzzball somewhere around here that I bought, for that. And you got Hooter and stuff, and Hooter looks a lot like, some of the other
Rebo.
Star Wars characters. Yeah, Max Rebo, yeah, exactly. So it's like, what is going on here? You got that George Lucas influence right there, Francis Ford Coppola, good stuff.
yeah.
love
This
it.
is a good idea too. EPTX Protector, maybe it's Epic Texas Protector. A thriller HHN maze would be insane.
Oh my!
Oh,
Do it next year, dude. Look, if this movie,
Oh
so
my
this movie's
God.
Think of
projected, and if we want to go into Michael Jackson now, that's perfectly fine.
That'll be our next thing. We'll go into that. We'll
Okay.
get a couple of supers we'll hit, but we'll get into that because I do want to talk.
All right. But yeah, go ahead. I'll wait for Michael. I'll wait for the Michael segment.
Well, I was gonna hit where's another one here? You got Kagi, maybe? I may have got that completely wrong. Luke doing the moonwalk with Michael would be epic. That would be cool.
Just have fun with it. Just have fun with it. You know what I'm saying?
Just have a good time. And no one's gonna be mad. Nobody's gonna be mad
No.
about that. Even the diehard Star Wars people will be like, this is cool. I'm okay.
it's consistent. No,
Yeah.
nobody's gonna do that.
We did have a 2 earlier from Juliet. I'm not sure what currency that is, but thank you for that. It says like, subscribe, and share. And yeah, hit the like and subscribe button. Have all these tabs up on have all the streams going. Hit the like buttons there. Just do that thing. It'd be great.
Like I do right now. No, British pound sterling is what that is, and Juliet mods for us. Thank you so much for that.
Shout out to
Absolutely.
Juliet.
And we also had XVoot with another 10. It says Universal has nailed that middle ground, themed and thrilling entertainment. Disney has come close to this, but not quite like Universal. I don't think Disney wants to be in this space, though.
Yeah, true.
That's well said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. We also had a
Thank you,
gift
XVoot.
membership from Hidden Geek Village to Capture the Magic. We also had one to Vash Sky ParkCast
New
and
Skywatcher.
Orange Grove 55. Thank you, Hidden Geek Village. And let's see. Well, somebody did want you to try it for Han Solo, OG.
Yeah, I'll have to change my hair. I think someone said that. I would definitely have to change my hair.
Yeah,
But,
Storybook Sorcerer said, well, you'd have to
Oh,
change
there you go.
your hair. And so
Right.
it's just,
Yeah.
I don't think that'd be a no-go at that point.
That's a no-go. Yeah.
And then UTP Vid says, hey, Jared, do you know if Universal is able to do any Scooby-Doo attractions? I think they could with their agreement. I mean, they're in the parks already. So if they really wanted to, I would assume. I don't think they probably will, but I think if they really wanted to do it, they could.
Did they have like a long-standing agreement with Hanna-Barbera or something like that they established for Universal Studios Florida back in the day, and that kind of carries over? The licensing stuff gets a little wonky when you look
It
at the theme
can,
park
for
history.
sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure where that lies, but I mean, if Scooby-Doo sees a resurgence, which is possible, I mean, you never know.
Well, it was interesting. Speaking of that, when I was at FanFest the other night on the tram, our tram driver, I don't know, was telling us that there's actually going to be a new live action Scooby series coming out.
Oh,
which I didn't know. So that might give, I mean, depending on how popular that is, that might,
interesting.
I think McKenna Grace, who was in Star Wars, she's actually in a lot of things lately. I think she's going to be playing Daphne.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, cool. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Now, are you guys more Daphne guys or more Velma? Where are we standing with that? I'm kind of a Daphne guy myself. But...
Probably Daphne. Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the what you could do with Velma. Maybe I'm much more lean for brunettes. All right, I like little curves, I suppose you could say. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. Depends on who.
There are variations of this question, OJ, because obviously these characters come in many forms.
Right.
Like the Velma series, for example. So you just never know.
You never know.
Which one. And Rogue Attraction says Velma Thick. And
she is. Yeah, she is.
I mean,
2 C's.
I have.
Didn't expect that one, Jared, did you?
I don't know if Velma's in a guise, so that might be a struggle.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there have been depictions of that philosophy for sure, right there.
Right.
Fantastic.
Oh man. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll talk about Michael Jackson here with the movie. I don't know if anybody predicted this. Like I said, I can't say I'm the biggest Michael Jackson fan ever, but the more I've, the obvious movie coming out had a lot of hype about it. It is opened at over $218 million worldwide, which is pretty massive for a biopic, especially, which is, I don't know if it's a resurgence or just a more people, feeling open and recognizing how great Michael was and all this stuff like that. But what are your guys' thoughts on the movie, how it's performing? Have you guys seen it? I haven't seen it yet. I do want to go see it. And do you think, and I think Theme Park Philosophy brought this up about potential, which we kind of already discussed, like theme park impacts off of this, because obviously he's been in theme parks, throughout the years. Do we see any more off of this? And likely there's rumors of a sequel to this, so we may be getting more Michael Jackson in the future.
Yeah, I think this was a big, I don't want to say wake up call, because I feel like Michael's always been popular, but I think Hollywood sometimes gets a little like Hollywood sometimes needs reminding, Yeah. I think Michael is going to be a big deal for a little while now. I think his songs on Spotify right now have seen a huge resurgence. The dude Michael Jackson is an absolute legend. Okay. This guy is a 1 in a bajillion human being. Yep. So I love to see it. I heard the movie's really good, even though the critics don't like it, but usually when the critics don't like it, that usually means it's a great movie. So,
right.
It's like if you release a movie and critics hate it, you're like, yes, okay. But if critics love it, you're like, oh no, this is terrible news.
No. So yeah, I'm all about Michael Jackson. I'm really glad to see this. I think it's great. We'll see how maybe it'll make $1 billion. Hopefully.
Oppenheimer did, and Oppenheimer opened less. I think Oppenheimer opened at like 90 million on its opening weekend, and it had legs. So. Biopics making $1 billion seems crazy, but we've already seen before. This one definitely could do it. The word of mouth seems really good. Like, I plan on going to see it this next week. A lot of it from word of mouth. I've talked to 3 people that saw it, and they're like, it's great. Like, the whole theater is singing along with it. They said it's kind of more of a, not like, how Marvel had that Marvel experience where people were reacting to it. He said it was similar to that. It was like people in the theater felt like they were part of the experience. I think that potentially could be kind of cool.
That's cool. That's
really
cool.
Which is fantastic. That's what you want from a theater experience, and that's why I think in some respects it's really important to maintain the integrity of the theater experience, because it's just that kind of collective community thing that you just simply can't get in the same way on streaming. And certainly with a movie like this, I remember working at Guitar Center when Michael Jackson unfortunately passed away right there. And, I was working besides rockers, guys doing gigs at bars and so forth. And every single one of them was crestfallen. And it's just that kind of reverberation for that artist was just unparalleled. He really was the king of pop, folks. It's just the waves that he made were tremendous. And look, a lot of people were anticipating this movie because of obviously that connection to his music, his concerts and everything else, his persona. They really wanted to get an insight here. And I think that, from what I understand, this experienced reshoots and so forth. So a lot of the critics and what their big hangups have been with this movie is that, oh, they didn't get into this, they didn't get into that. And it's like, look, there were deals done with the family, with the estate, and obviously they had some things that happened in which they mandated reshoots, and so some of that stuff wound up on the cutting room floor. Hopefully we see that maybe in future iterations there. But at the same time, to have the critics get this so wrong initially, I thought was really, frankly, I think it exposed them in a big way. Because clearly this film was not like the 24% or whatever that it debuted with Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, this film was seen in a much different light amongst the fans and also to just average cinema goers. And so that kind of disconnect right there, that chasm that was created, unfortunately was really destructive for this movie because, now when you look at Oscar contention and so forth, and when you look at the award circuit, it's like, well, do you give this to something that didn't resonate with the critics on that level right there? I think that affects it a little bit right there, which is unfair because obviously for the fans and for moviegoers, they really did resonate with this. So I think that has to be addressed a little bit right there. But overall, this is a phenomenal performance for a biopic. Absolutely insane. We did see some big numbers associated with like Bohemian Rhapsody, for example, back in the day. Right, but again, that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, very few things hit. This one hit big, and great job for everybody involved right here with producing something that I think regular audiences really did connect with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Michael, it was, like I said before, like a one of a kind kind of guy, and I've always felt bad for him because I feel like because he was very different, he was a target for like a lot of these baseless accusations against him and stuff. And I hate that, he was a good dude and I love his music and I hope this thing absolutely crushes, dude. We've mentioned it in the group chats, but like that Sega Genesis game Moonwalker was like so good, bro. Like so good, like, I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out, but it's great news to see. I love to see this. So
I agree. And the fact you had a guy, he was so popular, he was like, I'm going to wear one glove and it's going to be diamonds and everybody's going to wear it and nobody questions it. I'm like, that level of power. Like if somebody did that today, you'd be like, what the heck is wrong? Like, I don't know of any musician that could do that where people wouldn't immediately just think, what an idiot. Michael Jackson just wears one glove and it's diamond and diamond socks and just like, I'm going to wear that too. Like the impact was pretty crazy, but Philosophy, I know you've got some thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on?
Well, I think Orange Grove is right. I think this is a Michael Jackson resurgence that we're seeing, and it's not just in the box office numbers. It's actually in the streaming numbers as well. He's actually hit over 74 million listeners on Spotify. Again, Spotify is the only streaming service that actually counts its listeners for its artists. But they expected to show up to 85 to 90 million. So he's going to be right under the top 10 living artists now. Mind you, he's been dead for almost 20 years. But cumulatively, like if you were to count all the platforms that he's streaming on right now, iTunes, YouTube Music, Pandora, all those, I think he might be the top listened artist in the world right now. Again, which is insane. Yeah. That'd be like, I don't know, man. I mean, that's just crazy. Like an artist that died 20 years, somebody who was relevant 40 years ago. Okay, what is that like? Like Elvis, that's like music from 1939 being the biggest music in the time that Thriller came out.
Yeah.
What? Only Michael Jackson can pull something like that off. Now, in terms of, bring it all back to theme parks, because this is theme parking. Obviously, whether this comes back to theme parks in some capacity is really going to be contingent on the performance of how this movie does. But I think this is more than just a blip in terms of resurgence. I think this is like his exoneration tour.
Yeah.
There's been
that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's just been so much that has come out about Hollywood and their perversions, and to get a little dark here. There's been so much that we've learned about how Hollywood operates underground with like these pedophile syndicates and how they're connected to Epstein and all this. And and we have a much clearer picture of what actually happened with Michael Jackson. And we weren't, see, back in the 90s when the media controlled 100% of the narrative, everybody got swooned. Everybody got duped. It was very easy for everybody to just fall in line with the narrative. This is 2026, and the media doesn't control the narrative like they used to. We have a lot of alternate journalists, and we have the benefit of hindsight is 2020, right? So we have the benefit of hindsight as well. And so I don't think Disney would ever touch this again. And I'm not sure why, but I think that would be considered a loss, in my opinion. I think that there are more people now that look at Michael Jackson as being innocent and potentially even murdered by the music industry. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying that that's what it looks like from my perspective.
It did happen, but I'm also not saying that didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bold statement again. I think that's what it looks like. But I think that if Universal were to jump on this, provided that the movie performs well, which it's projected to hit $400 million by its second weekend, we'll see if it hits that. Man. I think they should lean in really hard to Michael Jackson, and not just in theme parks, but in other aspects of entertainment as well. Maybe they green light a show, a show where you can really dive into the nitty gritty of Michael Jackson. I think even in miniseries, let's say 2 seasons would do exceptionally well. But going back to theme parks, guys, like what kind of capacity do you see this? If Michael Jackson does come back, let's say.
Oh, well, I think a perfect opportunity. I think someone mentioned it in the chat for Universal would be a Thriller HHN maze.
Oh gosh, amazing. Dude, that would. I mean, if they headlined that, that HHN would be insane. If that was part of the lineup.
Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you, it would be absolutely bonkers. You know what I'm saying? So, and you're right. Theme park philosophy. We're in 2026 now, and people are smart. They can see through the BS. You know what I'm saying? And maybe back in the day it was a little harder because like we only had like one outlet, the TV, whatever. But people can do their own research now. And people have been awakened, especially with this Michael Jackson stuff. Like, you know what? He was not a bad dude. And the smear campaign that was against him back in the day was completely out of line. And he was an easy target because he was weird. You know what I'm saying? So it's an easy sort of you can see it was an, what's the word for it? It was a very easy smear campaign because he had these weird quirks about him, right? But he wasn't the guy that he was portrayed. He was a good dude. The Macaulay Culkin, all these kids that were around him all the time said he was always, looking out for them. So I've always felt like that was so unfair. And I felt like it ramped up when he passed away, which is really like for me, even like dirtier, right? Like it's more sinister because he's not even here to defend himself and they're going after him.
That's the thing, that this kind of reignition from the media to go after Michael in this way, and obviously his legacy and so forth, using this as kind of a way to do that over and over again. It's just been really, really bad. I've seen that from the trades and so forth. I don't want to call out any particular outlets, but I just see this over and over again, where it's like, oh, the Michael movie, this and all of that, and it's all pointed in kind of this negative light, and it's like, really? You're just not going to let this go. You're just going to keep going on with this. I mean, you certainly didn't critique maybe some Hollywood industry executives and so forth that should have been critiqued at the time. You let that stuff fly, even though even though everybody knew it was going on, but you just took the target to Michael, and you're still laying into him. And I think that affects a lot of the reviews and so forth for this, which is a real shame. You really should be, if you're critiquing a film, it really should be contained within that film and what's being presented, not this kind of outside stuff, this outside bias. But unfortunately, that's just what we're seeing. To Philosophy's point, that the media landscape has changed. Obviously, there's a lot more independent outlets, and the trust in media is at its one of its lowest points ever. So I don't know how much resonance this will have. But it's really a shame that there's kind of this stain over this movie that shouldn't really be there.
Yeah, well, and I think too, like we've seen this playbook. It's like multiple allegations. Like there was a playbook, a lot of these things, the way it ran. And you're right, Vash. It's like you're calling out this, but there's how many things we found out now in the last 15 years that was like, well, it's an open secret about this sort of thing, and no one ever talked about it. And I think the more like that goes against the narrative that is painted about him, because people just don't trust, what these outlets are saying, and they have ulterior motives and things like that. But in terms of theme park, obviously, like an HHN thrill thing would be awesome, but like Epcot should do Captain EO again.
Oh,
like this thing would be an hour-long wait. I mean, you wouldn't be able to get in there right now. No, I agree. I don't think Disney will. I saw something. There was some show. I think it was it was The Simpsons, where Disney still has that episode where Michael Jackson was on there. Like, you can't watch it for no real reason. They just took it off, and they don't want it on there. So I don't think Disney's really seems open to reigniting or getting into the Michael craze off of this. It seems.
No, definitely not.
I think that's a mistake too, by the way, because I think that we are seeing, we're going to see more than just a blip, right? This isn't going to be like when Captain EO was re-released at the time of Michael Jackson's death. I mean, that was a much different time. Michael was being perceived under a different light. I mean, there were a lot of people that got over the fact, of these accusations because he was acquitted of all 14 charges. But I mean, the death was still so close to the accusations. I mean, it is 2026 now, guys, and excuse me, Michael Jackson is reaching the top of the charts across all musical platforms. I think like he had 13 songs in the top 200 global.
Yeah, that's
on so in the world, with all the countries and the songs they produce, he had 13 songs in the top 200.
Dude,
that's crazy numbers. So, anyways, Universal Studios, Disney, if they're smart, I think they would be looking at ways to incorporate Michael Jackson into your parks. It's a money-making machine. People want it. People are clamoring for look. And not only that, but there are entire generations that don't know what music was like before the internet and before Instagrams and being able to stream. I mean, Michael Jackson got as popular as he was without the internet. I mean, there's tribes in South America who knew who Michael Jackson was that don't have TVs.
It's crazy.
You think about the height of that too, like Michael Jackson, even Michael Jordan, pre-internet, how big they were. Oh, man. It is kind of wild to think about just how much of an impact they had with all that. Disney Fan 55 says Michael's sequel has 1/3 of footage already filmed. Director Antoine Fuqua, I think that's his name, has just revealed per global box office.
That's cool.
That is
very good news.
Who made this movie? I don't remember the studio that made it.
Universal. Well, Lionsgate. Universal distributed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think his nephew played him in this movie. Am I correct about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew the family was involved.
And let me tell you guys. Jafar Jackson nails it. There are moments in the movie where I'm reminding myself, this isn't Michael Jackson. I mean, when he's singing, like there's a scene in there where he sings Human Nature, and I mean, it's surreal. Like I was just like, this is not Michael Jackson. I keep reminding myself, this is not Michael Jackson. His performance is so good. And mind you, this is his first acting performance. And they're already talking Oscar nomination for Best Actor. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen because of the critics, but if they're smart, I think they would at least give him a nomination. Just because it's so easy to come off as a Michael Jackson impersonation because of his very unique persona.
Mm-hmm.
No, this guy was like the spiritual embodiment of Michael Jackson. Like you would think that Michael Jackson might have even like possessed him because of just the accuracy of his portrayal, and not just the portrayal, like the stage performance was just spot on.
And I'm telling you, if Universal, like Lionsgate, and they're Universal is distributing this movie and it's doing numbers for sure, I would not be surprised if Universal does add this to HHN. I would not be shocked. I mean, and if they do that, it's game over. I mean, that would be. You
would have the entire park dressed up as Michael Jackson. Like everybody would show up dressed as Thriller.
Bro, if Universal wants to put the nail in the Disney After Hours event coffin, that's what you do. Because that would do it. That would freaking do it. Because I mean, how is Disney even going to compete with that?
There's nothing. Taylor Swift.
Right. Yeah. It's like, no, what Disney will do is like what they always do with Oogie Boogie Bash is they'll trot out the Dr. Dorfenschmitz from Phineas and Ferb or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, Brian has a good point here. Disney doesn't want to pay Michael Jackson estate any money. That's probably a big part of it.
But you know what, though? They do already, though. Doesn't Guardians have the Jackson 5 in it though?
Yes.
Yeah, but
So
I think the Jacksons are a different. They're a different
Different.
license than Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that might be.
Man, we should throw. Man, if you imagine Guardians, like rides like Guardians, and what Disney's going to do with the Muppets, where you have all these songs rotating, which I think is going to become a trend. Throw Michael Jackson tracks on there. Guardians is going to have double the weight. Like it's just funny how song choices on these rides now are such a draw. It's honestly a very easy way to make something rewritable, but have a Michael Jackson month or something, dude. That would be awesome,
bro. You could do. We're getting Muppet Rock and Roller Coaster. The Muppets are very meta. Okay, and I wouldn't even be sure. I don't even know, but I'm sure like Michael Jackson probably made a guest appearance on the Muppet Show at one point, probably. But even if he didn't, it doesn't matter. You could have Muppets. You could have the Muppets do a Michael Jackson, like you were saying, like a season on that attraction. Like just all Michael Jackson songs. The Muppets are dressed like him, dude. It'd be amazing.
That would be awesome.
It would be amazing.
I hope they do. I hope there is some theme park stuff out of this, and I hope that like it seems like the movie's well on its way, doing very well. I'm gonna go see it, but I've heard that as well, Jose, about the performance of him in this is just amazing. So the stuff I've seen from it looks great. So it's been a good year for movies, though, to be honest. Like Project Hail Mary was really good.
Really good
Mario movie. Like there's been some really good movies that have come out, and I think it's the theaters are very happy at the moment to have some stuff hitting in the theaters for sure.
If I were theaters, I'd make a bid to get rid of critic ratings because they don't do theatrical performances any favor, and I don't think anybody even really cares. Like if critic ratings went away tomorrow and all we had was cinema score, and which I prefer anyways because I think cinema score is a more honest a feedback mechanism for what people think of movies because they're getting out of the theater experiences from regular people. I think that you would actually see theatrical performances skyrocket to the moon. The critics don't do theatrical any favors, which is kind of ironic because they advocate for the film going experience so much, and yet their quest for honesty and integrity, no matter what the ends are, hurt the industry more than I want to say more than anything, but they do a lot of damage, even for something like this where you have to have this narrative battle between whether Michael is good or bad, and it's like it's a movie about Michael Jackson's music. Right. What are we doing here? And to Vash's point earlier, like they were mad about things that weren't in the movie. Well, how about you just stick with the movie? Like just stick with that and not criticize it for not what's in it. Not to mention the fact that, there really weren't any allegations until 1993, and this movie only goes up to bad, which is in 1988. So, like, what are the critics even talking about?
Yeah.
So, I digress. I think that, if I were the studios, I would get the critics the hell away from movies. Maybe give them their own spot in the corner, in a dark corner, but they shouldn't be anything that
put them in the shed.
Put them in the shed, but there really shouldn't be anything that people base whether they're going to go see a movie on or not.
Well, that's a good question. We talked about this on Seymour's video the other night, OG. Like, did they have any impact on you guys? I'm curious about the chat too. Like, does anybody even give credence? Because personally, I don't. Like, I don't really like YouTube critics that I enjoy. Like, I think that's different though, because it's much more of like a fan perspective, in many ways.
Right.
But like, just the traditional critic, kind of to our point about Galaxy's Edge, they're just not fun. Like anything that seems fun, they're like, this is not up to my. And it's like, shut up, just have fun. Like, not every movie has to be Schindler's List. Like, you can just have a movie that exists about Mario. Like, was it the deepest movie ever? No, but neither are the games. Like, it is what it is. But I personally don't give any credence to critics, at least the traditional ones.
I don't personally, obviously, if a movie really does resonate, you're going to hear it word of mouth. People are going to say, hey, you got to go see this. And that's usually what I gave credence to. Now, there are a couple of, independent critics that I do listen to, but not exclusively, right? Unfortunately, there is so much of a wider intelligentsia out there that do defer to critics heavily. And I do agree with theme park philosophy. When you're looking at cinema score, right, that's a really interesting metric to actually use in order to graft at the legs of something like that, and whether or not a word of mouth is actually going to take place. And yeah, that's definitely something that we should give more credence on. And I do recognize that box office watchers do, and which is really, really good. But I'll take it out of the movie context for just a second. But if you look at like the games context, for example, right, with the release of Crimson Desert recently, when it was released, I think IGN gave it a 6 right there. Pearl Abyss's stock developers of that game dropped by 30%, just based on what those initial critic reviews only. Now it has bounced up back because Pearl Abyss took that feedback. They gave fans what they want. They had a series of patches that actually came out. Now you have, the critics that gave it those low scores saying, maybe we need to reevaluate our positions. But in that case right there, the stock went down by a huge degree. That's the kind of effect that these things can have. I think there is a responsibility to the people who work on these things, the people who are involved in it. If you're attached to Michael Jackson in some way, maybe you're not like a lead actor, or maybe you're like a lighting technician, gaffer, or whatever. Maybe you're thinking, hey, if we get a sequel, maybe we get, more work out of this. Hollywood certainly needs it and so forth. Well, wouldn't that be impacting just a little bit if you saw a 24% score on Rotten Tomatoes? I mean, these are people's lives affected by this and affected by this decision making as penned out by these critics. And I don't like the effect that they have. I don't give them much credence, but a lot of people do, and that's kind of the worry there.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. If there's a movie out there that you're interested in, go see it, because
absolutely
a lot of times the critics they may mean well, right? But like they're looking at these films through a very textbook, like film school kind of perspective, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But like when you go and see it, you're not going to watch it through that same lens.
Right.
It's going to be different for you.
That's a really good point, actually. Well, and like I always say too, like we're talking about theme parks, I'll tell people all the time. Like if I've had hot takes about Galaxy's Edge for years. People are like, I enjoy it. I'm like, don't let my opinion affect your enjoyment. I'm just a dude in a spare bedroom talking. Like if you agree with me, great. If you don't, hey, that's great. Like I just think it's a lot of times these critics get upset, if it seems at least, that if their opinion's given and people don't agree with it, they get kind of mad. I'm like, if you love something, don't let anybody persuade you not to like it or not go see it. Like, and I listen to people all the time, but I don't agree with them, but I don't get mad about it. I'm just like, well, different opinion. Like there's some people that think Interstellar's great and other people think it's terrible. Yeah. I think it's a really good movie. I enjoy it, but it's like, it's just perspectives.
Well, the latter is just objectively wrong, and we just cast those people. I'm joking like that. I'm joking. Well, no, but I remember when Interstellar actually came out. To your point, Jared, it wasn't necessarily perceived as like this, like really big, next greatest thing. It was kind of ho hum from the critics a little bit there when you compare it to Christopher Nolan's other work. That was really interesting because now, 10 years later, past that point, right, people think of that film very, very differently. They think it's like, it really is a masterpiece. I always thought it was, but hey, a lot of the critics, they didn't initially jump on board. So that kind of perception, right, certainly affects maybe the greater picture that people are trying to make in their minds surrounding an individual picture.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Robert Polk says, a spare bedroom with a lot of toys. These are collectibles, okay? A lot of them are popcorn buckets. Some are toys, okay? But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Right. The last thing we're going to hit here real quick is I want to talk about this facial recognition scanning starting in Disneyland. Now, from my perspective, this isn't really new because Universal's been doing this. Now, I don't know if they do this in Hollywood, but they've been doing facial recognition to get into Universal for quite a while. And it works pretty seamlessly, but this article does bring up the fact that it's something you don't really think about. I'll be honest, I didn't necessarily give it a ton of thought the first time I ever used it, and I think a lot of people fall into that, which is the privacy concerns with this and what with this data of your biometric information, as this becomes more prevalent of places, not only theme parks, using your face to tie you to an online identity. What happens with that information? And in my opinion, it's not an if, but a when these things are hacked. What is the possibility? Well, what could happen from this? And I think this is something, it's a good conversation to have because I'm not necessarily against this, but I think there are things that need to be talked about and have concerns about, especially with, Anthropic has this new AI where they're not unleashing it yet because apparently it puts all of the infrastructure of the world apparently in danger because it can hack it all. So this stuff is going to get crazy. I think it's called like Mystic or Mythic. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but they're actually keeping it under lock and key for now because they basically said it can hack any system in the world. So
Okay.
what would happen though if, like, let's say Disneyland, this stuff gets hacked? I mean, you get in some strange territory with this just to get into a theme park.
You do, but here's my thing, and I agree with that. I do, but I agree with all of that. Where like they have a smorgasbord of data with the facial recognition. My thing with the whole privacy issue at this point, that ship has sailed at this point. Like through the Disneyland app, you're tracking me through the whole park all day long, where I eat, what I do, what ride I'm on at any given moment, my address, my credit card information. I mean, they already have so much of it that it's almost like at this point, I don't know. That's where I'm at with it. Like, it's not like we're starting from zero, is what I'm trying to say. Like they already have all your data and they're tracking you all day long anyway. And now they can take a picture of your face. I don't know. For me, I'm like, eh.
Well, and like your face has probably been scanned in stores. I mean, you're not wrong at all about this. Like it may be too late to have this discussion about facial recognition of that data because, whether it's governments or there's even new cars that they just have a new law where it's going to read your face in a car that could shut it down or something. You get into really weird territory. And I always point to, I believe Disney had a patent for this years ago where they would track your foot, like your feet, and they could see where you go throughout a park by just tracking your feet alone. So this isn't really anything new, but you bring a valid point. I mean, they already have all your information essentially if you're going to the theme parks, especially consistently.
Yeah, they have all your info. Go ahead, Vash.
Well, no, I think from my vantage, I think Disney, they filed a permit in order to change out these turnstiles, I believe back in 2024, if I'm not mistaken, right there, for the tune of about $4.8 million. You do not make an investment that large for the entrance turnstiles of your park unless you are looking to reap maybe monetary benefits on the back end. I think in this case, it was to lighten the load when it came to cast members that they actually needed to man these individual positions at the front of these parks. Obviously, there are efficiencies surrounding that, of course, and maybe speed might be one of them, but mainly it is labor. So I don't prefer that. Obviously, I like to have everybody keep their jobs, but c'est la vie. We're going to go ahead and implement AI or maybe new emerging technologies. Fair game. But, while Universal, I think, has used biometric data, obviously, with face printing when it comes to the entrance of their parks in that resort out there in Florida for a while. And Disney has done some biometric stuff when it comes to fingerprints and attaching it to your emission media out there in Florida. We really haven't seen a lot of those things come their way to California. One of the reasons is because California has a little bit more robust consumer privacy and protection laws in place in order to maybe prevent data harvesting and so forth, and to control some of those privacy and security concerns for consumers. I think that's kind of slowed it up from the big rollout right there, which I think is very, very interesting in how that whole thing has gone about the two different coasts. And that's why I think the LA Times is writing an article about this. Even though this has existed, it's never really existed with Disney in California. And I think the cultural shift there is what people maybe are reacting to, because this is just something that we haven't really seen. Also, too, well, I think the other thing brought out in the LA Times article anyway that you brought up so eloquently, Jared, right there, the concern about kids and having kids information right there. That's another thing that's like, okay, well, maybe I'm okay for me. What about my child? And how is this data actually going to be used by this company? I think that's the kind of growing conversation right there. We've seen a patent from Universal actually very recently about how they could actually use maybe a profile that they actually established for you in conjunction with machine learning and a couple of other tools and sensors and so forth to, look at line cutting, behavioral disruptions, right, drunkenness and disorderly conduct and all those kind of things and detecting those. And it's a little bit concerning from that end.
It is crazy when you actually start digging into that thing and what it might be able to do. To say it might be concerning is probably an understatement of what they might be able to track in those parks.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
yes. Yeah. And so you have to really examine these things, right? You kind of have to say, like, okay, well, I don't know, maybe how are we going to go ahead and use these things that we obviously know the Epic Universe, right, is maybe using those in creative ways to really create a face print of you. to have you attached on a profile, maybe with your admission media, maybe not, but you have this kind of seamless entry that they have for their parks. That includes Epic Universe, but maybe that extends out to the portals. And so we've seen now the mechanisms in place that Epic Universe was built with initially, right, to have these kind of demarcation areas in which they set up these scanners at these portals, right? Scan your face, and now you get access to that portal beyond. Now, we haven't really seen really a reason that it would be used for capacity concerns, but that's what Universal's saying now. My thing is, well, that could open up the possibility of, hey, maybe you purchase a day at Epic Universe, but after a certain point, maybe at 6 p.m., maybe you open up Celestial Park, and you have this barrier to entry for the portals themselves, restricted to those people who have paid for it. That's one way that you could use that. Other way is maybe annual passes, right? If you do allow for annual pass holders to actually be in your park, maybe you reserve the portals when they're over capacity to people who have maybe paid for that day. And maybe you exclude annual pass holders in that context. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. And I'm not saying that, it's necessarily bad. It's just when you have these privacy concerns that are out there, especially in that California culture, it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, anytime you go on a website out here in California, you get the notice on the bottom, like the California privacy.
Oh yeah,
something or other. Do you accept it? Whatever. It's every website. They all have it.
I'm aware. I still do some, but it built websites over the years, and you have to follow these California guidelines on those. It's always an extra little step on those things for sure.
Yeah. Now I do want to bring up one thing though, and I know this is on topic, but kind of off topic. I'm a little disappointed in Universal with the whole portal thing. And the reason being is because from what I'm hearing, the reason why they're doing this is because the restaurants are not really filling up in Celestial Park like they were hoping, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason being for that is because they don't have annual passes and they can't fill the park to capacity because of the lack of, the attractions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like instead of fixing the core problem, they're addressing the symptom. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like the doctor, you go to the doctor and you're like, I have a severe headache. Oh, we'll give you Advil, but you might have like an aneurysm, right? You're not addressing the actual problem, right?
Oh, by the way, I've got a headache out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's like, I feel like the problem is like, you need to be able to have more people in your park. And so the capacity is the issue.
Yeah.
Adding this portal kind of like thing is not addressing the fundamental issue though,
Well, they haven't said officially what they're doing. So this is all they're testing. And so this is all theoretical. I mean, it's been a long-standing rumor that there would be an open Celestial Park concept potentially. I think there is credence to it, obviously, because they're testing it, but you're also coming up on the 1 year mark of Epic being open. And so you've seen ever since Epic's been open, almost, at least 20% growth in revenue. Those past 2 quarters, 24%. They're going to want to still show revenue growth after Epic. They don't want to see a downturn in that. So if you can't get more people in here in the short term, because they are building things to address the capacity issue, but in the short term, this is where I think they might do some things like an open Celestial Park, Epic APs, tying this stuff to facial recognition, like, trying to find, I guess I would say, scrape up more revenue, because I definitely think that is something they're going to want to do. But it's interesting. I have thoughts on it. I don't love it necessarily, but I'm very curious how they might approach this. But I think if you do see them do this, it'll be in the next month or two, given you're now in this quarter where Epic was on the books the last time, and they've got their earnings report they're going to have the next one. So I think it's going to be something. We just don't know what it is.
The other thing, which by the way, we had a pro raid just recently right here.
Yeah.
Looks like the WW Pro redirected to our program, so thank you so much for coming in. The water's warm. Welcome on in here. But to OG's point, I this is an interesting idea. I do partially agree with your analysis. I think the reason why there were so many restaurants maybe incorporated into the middle of Celestial Park was this idea that, okay, if in fact we need to do this, we can, and this would make up for not having potentially a city walk concept outside of your park, which, obviously the existing Universal core parks, that being Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida, currently benefit from. So I think that might have been the idea there. And look, I mean, honestly, what would Epcot look like if they did a similar concept, right? With the Back of World Showcase right there? That might be pretty interesting, might be pretty cool. So I think I think utilizing technology and what it affords you to really kind of do some out of the box thinking, I think might be a good thing. I don't know if it's going to work with Epic Universe because, like you said, OG, there's a lot of problems with how that park has been operating currently. Right? I do think there are more things that they should be doing to address those concerns before maybe opening this thing up to the wider public. And perhaps they are doing that. To Jared's point, we don't actually know what they're doing. They're just saying, hey, we have the ability to close off these portals if we need to. So it's interesting.
I think they'll probably do something. If you look in the app, they've had that virtual line icon popping up sometimes too, which was a big rumor before Epic opened that they might have essentially the virtual line to get into these lands and these portals. You know, it's one of those things I can understand it from a business standpoint of, well, okay, your restaurants have reservations in the evenings. You can't get enough people in this park, given the wait time issues, to fill up those restaurants. So you get people in here, they're buying food, they're drinking drinks. You also have the fireworks show that's probably going to premiere sometime this year. All indications point to that. So if you want a full house for these fireworks shows, and probably have some sort of system where people come in just to eat and drink, and they're like, hey, let's go into Dark Universe while we're here and buy a discounted ticket to get into a portal or a half day or something like that. It's probably a way for them, like, trying to make more money. But my whole thing would be not losing focus on the guests that are paying to go and their experience. And so it's a delicate balancing act you would have to do if you do go this route. I don't know if they do the Epic APs. I think there's a very good chance you see this open Celestial Park concept. What you were saying, Vash, I think it's a pretty good possibility. But if you do this and the Epic APs on top of the issues you already have in this park, that it could blow up in their face. Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
How they go about this.
And it would be cool if they prioritize APs, right? Because APs, you know, obviously it's a paying guest still, even though they're maybe paying by year, not by day. I mean, a lot of annual pass holders out in Florida are really anticipating getting Epic Universe, right? And I don't think people are really attached too fondly to the idea that you would have this whole park be barred by a reservation system that would be put in place. I think a lot of the feedback that they got via those surveys that they recently published, I think they saw that. So restricting access to individual portals, I think, is a nice kind of nuanced way of doing this. You have to have capacity constraints of some kind. There's no question about it, especially for how underbuilt Epic currently is. But can we do things in a way that doesn't feel so exclusionary, like is currently afforded to annual pass holders actually in Disneyland? Ironically enough, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I do want to circle back, and then this is like totally off the beaten path here, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a side quest here.
We never do that here. What are you talking about?
Never.
Wait a minute. Program.
One thing that I forgot to mention actually with the FanFest thing is that the Universal did a great job with the City Walk integration into FanFest. Tommy and we actually ate at the MBC Bar and Grill that day. We went to FanFest, and they actually had food themed to One Piece there.
Oh, nice.
And it was actually really, really good. I got some like burger without the buns. I don't know if it was like a carnivore, like keto thing or something. I don't know. It came with no buns, whatever.
Probably would be carnivore or keto. Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yeah, but it was great, dude. But anyway, and then Voodoo Donuts also had some like Scooby-Doo themed donuts and stuff like that. So I thought that integration into the City Walk portion of like, you know, Universal was really, really cool. And the food was fantastic. I had the Voodoo Donuts, which were great. And then I also had that hamburger thing at NBC Grill, which was also really, really good. So shout out to Universal for that. I like the integration into the City Walk. I wasn't expecting City Walk to kind of get in on the FanFest thing, and they did.
That is cool though. I would wonder, I don't love Orlando's City Walk. It's okay. I think some of the new stuff coming will be like that Luke Combs bar they're putting in, Five Guys. Like I think there's going to be some stuff coming in that is better potentially. But it would be interesting if they did FanFest in Orlando if it also went into City Walk, which would be kind of a cool. Which they've done that before. They've toyed with that with Mardi Gras before. One of the years, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they had Mardi Gras stands in City Walk. They didn't do it again. I don't think it worked very well, but they have tried that before. They kind of bring some of these like events out of the park itself. But just to wrap up the whole facial recognition thing, and I think someone brought up in the chat, And my whole point on this is I'm the same with you, Vash. Like, utilize technology. There's privacy stuff. Like, hopefully that stuff is secure and everything. But I do think it needs to be let known that, like, you can opt out of these things. And I think sometimes people feel coerced into doing this. And I just think if you're in a situation where you don't know, like, you're not comfortable, but you don't know you can opt out, you don't want to be difficult. If you're not comfortable with it, I think it needs to be, they need to be known that, like, you can opt out, and not be it where it's like you got 12 lines and 10 of them are facial recognition and 2 are not. And you're basically saying, like, well, if you go over there, you're going to be waiting a while. I think that is one thing I would just say is, like, let it be known very clear to people, whether cast members or people telling people, hey, if you want to opt out, you can opt out. I just think there should be more like transparent about that, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and I think Disneyland is employing what is called best practice as far as how they're handling this, especially with those California protections in place. And I'll give California credit in this instance right here. They have been very, very forward-thinking in their consumer protection laws and so forth that provide for maybe opt-outs, and so you're not restricting services to just people who have to basically engage with these facial recognition systems and so forth. At least they're all alternatives. LA Times did bring up the fact that I think in the day that they looked at it, there was like dozens of open, facial recognition turnstiles, and there was like only 4 where you had cast members actually manually scanning. So could we see a balancing of that? Maybe, perhaps, but I think it's a really, really interesting discussion. Also, too, very, very quickly there, Jared, we might see the erasure of magic bands, at least at Disneyland. Maybe we see more of that, division-wide, but I think that's a very interesting thing, too.
It is, Vash. And with the whole magic band thing, I'm actually kind of surprised it's even still like a big thing in Florida. Because with the phones and everything, you would think that, like, you would just do everything on your phone. I haven't
used a magic band probably 2 years. I just use my phone. My wife used her Apple Watch. Like, our daughter has a magic band, but it's not like the tech is utilized, but the magic bands themselves are not utilized as much. I remember being at Disney whenever they were like kind of beta testing it, and you were like, "This is crazy!" Like, the thing, but. I don't know, like, I know they haven't been used as much at Disneyland, but I would not be shocked, which is kind of funny. I know you talk about this, Vash. I had a video talking about this where you had Thomas Mazaloom talking about phone usage, and they want to reduce that for guests. But at the same time, if you're reducing magic bands, that almost inherently means you're going to have to increase phone usage.
Right.
The tech.
Interesting.
So I don't know how. I don't know if that's just lip service. I'm just saying that. I hope. I like the stuff I heard him talk about. Because I do think it has been an issue, especially at Disney World, I can speak to, where everything you do is you're tied to your phone all day long, drains your battery, and you're supposed to be there to escape on your phone all the time, and then you get a text message, you get an email, you're pulled right out of that. Right. And so I think it's an issue. But if you're gonna get rid of that type of tech, I almost think you're gonna increase the phone usage.
Well, yeah, and where do you make those cuts? Because Lightning Lane is a revenue stream at this point. There's no way they're going to limit that. Yep. Well, mobile order is also a revenue stream. You're not going to limit that.
Yeah.
So where do we see the cuts? We saw it recently, OG. Do you know?
Where are they?
Mobile checkout. Mobile checkout is now only reserved to the biggest stores. I think World of Disney, I think at Disneyland, or maybe World of Disney over there at Walt Disney World's Disney Springs, but I had to verify that myself. But they were rolling that out, and I know a lot of the internally, a lot of the merchandise and food teams were like, we have this concept that is building called phone fatigue. And back in the day, it was Genie Plus, and they were like, look, if people engage with Genie Plus, then they're busy reserving rides, right, because they paid into that system, and they saw a diminishment actually with other services that they were providing, for example, mobile checkout and reservations for dining, because of that, right, because they were so clued into this now Lightning Lane purchase that they've made, that they were not necessarily engaging with these other ways of engaging with Disney's products like dining and merch, which I thought was really, really fascinating. But Thomas Muslim, to your point there, Jared, he did give this presentation at DCA, right, to I guess a dozen or so media members, got Drew's thoughts on that, which I thought was really, really interesting. Shout out to Disney Drew out there. But he was saying that, at least for Magic Band, for Walt Disney World, which he was saying, basically no other resort in the world operates like Walt Disney World, right? Because so many of these things are local usually, and this is such a place where people come down, and it's a vacation destination, right? You have 45,000 hotel rooms. Even amongst that populace, I think only 55% of users out there, or theme park guests, actually use Magic Band. That was the number he expressed there. Whereas at Disneyland, that was only down to like 7%. Right?
Wow.
So it's kind of like... So, and he was like, look, do we necessarily spend money to, which, I mean, there's a cost associated with all these things, right? Do we spend our capital on things that are only going to affect 7% of guests, or do we take that same capital and transfer it to things that are going to affect 100% of guests? That was the argument that he made there with members of the media, and I think that's actually not bad thinking right there. Oh, gee, I know you told me before that Thomas Moslem, he's a little bit of a stickler there for efficiencies and so forth.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm
might
hearing.
be part of that thinking, right? Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they back off from Magic Band. And,
how do you couple all that stuff? It just seems like a tangled web of a mess right now to even attempt it.
Right. And here's the thing. I mean, if Disney was a little bit more forward thinking, I think they should have done maybe a dual thing where maybe phones could have been used a little bit more alongside with Magic Bands, because Magic Bands, the whole concept was it was really a stepping stone for the widespread adoption of smartphones. Back in the day when it was introduced, I think back in 2013, so many people had a smartphone, and it was like, okay, well, we want to go ahead and provide a lot of these services, but obviously the people who don't have smartphones, let's go ahead and provide them this. And that's why they had the Magic Bands roll out. That's why they gave you them upon booking your vacation and so forth, in order to see that widespread adoption for the digital services. Also, too, if you don't have to pull your wallet out and you just have it on your Magic Band, that's a way of getting around that as well, right? So I think now, though, that's... phone usage is kind of ubiquitous, and maybe they can get smarter on reducing that phone fatigue while also to reducing Magic Band and maybe using some of the infrastructure for it. Maybe that's kind of what they're thinking, but I don't know. Like you said, Jared, it's kind of a mess right now because even on both coasts, they're used very, very differently. And they promised, by the way, you're going to be using your Magic Band to get into your room at Disneyland Resort. That never happened.
Yeah, I think the usage on both is interesting because I didn't know it was that low at Disneyland. I knew it was low, but I knew it wasn't like it was at Disney World. But in my opinion, if you really want to cut down on phone usage and really like untying these things, like I don't know how you would do any of this without a smartphone. Like how are you going to do mobile order if you don't have people do it on their phone? But the thing that I think carries the most weight to it is the whole Lightning Lane. If they adopted, which the rumor was they almost went this route, but more of the universal style of what they have their Premier Pass, or like the Express Pass system, where you don't have to schedule anything. You price it up a little bit higher. I don't know the exact numbers, but I would imagine you might make just about as much money as you make now with a little bit higher price point, but people don't have as many, there's not as many of them walking around a park. Doesn't impact the standby times as long. And you also don't have to be on your phone scheduling everything. That would reduce a ton of it. Yeah. And then you would still have people probably using it for mobile orders and things like that. But I don't know where Disney's appetite for that is at all, or if they even would do it.
I can tell you right now, the retail team and everybody in the food, they hate Lightning Lane. They just hate it. They really do. And
I can see why.
Look, I have provided this approach. I mean, OG, we talked about it many times, right? I think the approach, and I think, Jared, this is what you're kind of referring to right here, is if they were to increase the price of Lightning Lane and lower the adoption rate, so much so that it's an actual service for people who are actually paying for it and for the people who are not on it, right? Because those standby lines come to a crawl when you have 50% of people on the system, right?
Yep.
I think it would be better for everybody, and including those food and retail teams. But but who knows? I mean, they were saying, like, look, a lot of people aren't making sit-down dining reservations. Not because of price, because of time, because of how much time it took. Yep. When people are so clued in to getting the most out of their Genie Plus purchase.
And I think that's why if I'm Thomas Mazzolin, I'm trying to, my landing place is to create a touchless, essentially a touchless environment where you never have to touch your phone. You never have to touch your band. You don't have to concern with those things once you enter the park. what that looks like. I think facial recognition is probably the entry point into starting some kind of like touchless, seamless experience to enhance the overall quality, and not only just enhance the overall quality, but the lines at the parks is a big funneling point of operational issues, right? Even from the gate, right? Like people have all sorts of problems with their RFIDs, whether it's on a band, they can't pull up the app, they don't know where their AP pass is. And it becomes really problematic. I mean, before the people even get into the parks, and then of course it gets, compounded once they're in the parks because the same problem persists. It's just they had a cast member to help them right then and there when they're trying to get in, but they're still going to have these anyways. So touchless, seamless, I think that's where they're going ultimately. And they see, facial recognition as the technology to do that. And again, as far as like, the morality of it or the ethics of this, people are always willing to give a little bit of anonymity and freedom for expediency. That's what I've found just in my own observations. Convenience always. Yeah. People will probably become slaves for convenience, but I digress.
That's a whole
people are going to give that up. And when the theme park experience is becoming more and more complex, convenience becomes more of a commodity with higher value. And so, yeah, I think this is going to be an easy exchange for people, especially if the quality is good. Like if you can walk around anywhere theoretically and never have to pull out your phone to make a reservation or to arrive at a lightning lane to say, I'm here. Man, I tell you what, I think that's going to be something that's going to really appeal to guests. And there's at least 50% of people that are already bought into that idea, and convincing the other 30 to 40%. It's really not going to take a whole lot because look where we are right now. All right. So I don't.
Well, and also the guest satisfaction scores, if you were able to simplify that, I imagine would be much higher, because I think I can tell you right now, with our podcast been going on almost like 9 years now, the biggest complaint you have from people, and I feel for people that have never been, they want to go to Disney World, you might as well get a second job trying to learn everything you got to do. And
so true.
And people feel like they need a vacation from their vacation, which I would imagine you don't really want to go back, because you're like, well, I'm not looking for extra work that I'm having to pay for. So if you can simplify that, which I think Universal has benefited from a more simplistic system, and pointed to, you're talking about Vash, about those feedback scores probably about the reservation system were not good because they don't want that. So if Disney is able to do that, I do think that would be welcome. And I tend to agree with you, Jose. I think that most people would gladly use their face if it meant an easier park going experience.
Well, and isn't it interesting too, like this, like the pendulum effect, right? Mm-hmm. Where the pendulum goes one way where the technology arrives with the phones, the smartphones, and it's like the obsession and like everything's on the phone now. But then inevitably the pendulum always starts to swing back the other way, doesn't it?
Yep.
And now we're starting to see that counterculture where like, no, we don't want to be on the phone though all the time. And you're even seeing that with like other stuff, like where it's like the AI sloth and all that, right? It's like that technology's there. And initially it's like, oh man, this is so cool, But then it's like, then now the commodity is like, no, but like authenticity is what we're craving, because we don't get a lot of that now, right? Yep. So it's like this weird kind of like back and forth with, everything kind of meets in the middle eventually, right?
Well, and like we've talked about before, about how theme parks, I think, are growing in popularity because it's a lived experience, and everything else in your life is so fake a lot of times. And so as much as phones have encroached into everyday life, the one place you don't want that to happen is when you're trying to escape. And so if that's encroaching more there, then, it's like every time you check your phone, you might be a text message or a phone call away from pulling you out of that. And I can imagine Walt Disney himself would have been like, I do not want people on phones, because he made you ride a monorail to get into Magic Kingdom. If you forget something in your car, that's a 40-minute trip back to your car, because they wanted you to be in a different mindset. So
that's a really good point.
And I think that's one thing, if you can do that and decouple these things, maybe facial recognition is the way to go about that. And if that achieves it, I think most people would probably be pretty on board with it.
That's a really good point, because when you walk into a park, they want you to be immersed in whatever their product is they're trying to sell you. And that level of disassociation that occurs between you and the brand, you and what they're trying to sell you, you and that immersion they're trying to achieve, occurs when you pull out your phone to make a dining reservation. If they have the capability of quantifying that with AI into actual capital, then that could potentially be hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And if they're leaving that on the table, they're going to look at ways to bypass that.
Yeah.
And even from, like you said, a customer perspective, like how do you sell this to the guests? Well, we're going to enhance the immersive experience, and we're going to make it a touchless, seamless environment. You never have to touch your phone unless you really wanted to.
You could
But
leave
in the
your phone
back,
in the car. That could be your marketing campaign. Leave the phone in the car and come into the parks.
But in the backside, what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate these touch points of disassociation, where now you're fully committed into that, into that experience, which actually translates into higher, capital per spending per person.
I think Thomas Moslem characterized it as friction points.
Yeah,
friction points.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is, like, I was at Epic part of the day when you couldn't have phones. I went to a team member preview. It was a great experience. It felt like a communal experience being in a theme park. Nobody had their phones out. You just would talk to people, and it was like, it was really cool. And then later that day, they were like, they dropped it. And they're like, oh, you can have your phones out. And the whole vibe of the park shifted. And I was like, man, if you could go back to where you just experience this stuff, it would just be. And I'm guilty of it too. We take pictures for social media and the YouTube channel. And you get caught up in that, but it's just one of those things where I think people want less tech in certain areas, especially as tech continues to grow. And I think a lot of time you look at the app too. It's like, I've often questioned how many Disney executives had planned a vacation with all the tools they've created, because if they had, they'd be like, this is not a good thing here, because it's like you could just throw it in the app. Yeah, just put it in the app. But everything, just the app becomes a landing spot for all this stuff because it's easy. People have phones, but then all of a sudden you look up and you've got 20 different things you got to do to pull off a trip. And now how do you decouple that? And I think maybe they're starting to look at that and maybe think about ways to, not that you're going to zero it out, but make it a little bit less, like you were saying, less friction when you're in the park.
I think a really good analogy is the way that they configure the apps for the guest experience is pretty analogous to like a self-checkout line. It's about 10-year-old technology. It's a 10-year-old idea. They're trying to come up with a HelloFresh where you preset your preferences and then it just gets delivered to your door. You don't even have to go to the grocery store.
Yep.
I think that's how I like to think of it. It's a lot more forward thinking. Whether guests are going to accept it or not, I think it really just depends on the convenience it offers. The more convenience it offers, the more people are going to be willing to go, okay, you can have my picture.
Right.
Yeah.
No, convenience does. People love convenience, which is a big part of why, like, streaming has cut into the theatrical so much. It's that convenience factor. I mean, you think Amazon, I mean, huge. I mean, we have a bunch of malls out here in Southern California that have been shut down, torn down. There's one right by my house that just got torn down for like a Rams training facility. And then, it's gonna be a Rams training facility. And then there's another one in Orange County, Westminster Mall, that got shut down recently. It's like, I mean, Amazon has destroyed brick and mortar. The convenience factor is huge.
Yeah. It's hard to get people off their couch. I mean, even myself, I'm not a huge sports fan anymore, but like buddy of mine last year was like, hey, you want to go to a Jaguars game? It was free. And I was like, I don't want to waste the entire Sunday. And I can just sit at home and watch on the couch. No, I don't want to go. And he's like, you don't want to go? I'm like, no, I'm not going to get home till like 7:00. And I don't like football that much. I was like, no, I'm good. Like, and it just, it's like, it's harder to get people to do stuff now for a lot of those reasons. So
no, it is. People don't go out. People don't do it. It's harder. Yeah. The culture has changed so much with that,
Yeah. I agree. That was a good discussion. Well, that even gets to the AI stuff. Where apparently Disney has a patent about AI can scan to see if people are buckled in instead of doing those pull your tab thing.
I did see that. It's good. I'm glad you brought that up. There is no insurance company in the world that would cover Disney if, in fact, they went digital only. And by the way, there are sensors in place now that tell everybody if they're buckled in or not. They don't rely on those singularly. So I thought it was very interesting, the angle that I think a lot of the media was going with. Hey, it could reduce, dispatch times and everything like that. And it's like, that's never going to happen. Ever.
Just imagine the one mistake it makes, or like, oops.
There it is.
No, exactly.
But we do have a $5 here from O2RR. He says, sorry, Vash, for seeing this question again. I imagine you've been asked this before. But for our other panelists, what are your 3 favorite worlds at Epic or interested in?
So I would do A Dark Universe for sure. Dragon, How to Train Your Dragon, and Celestial Park are my 3. I haven't been to the park yet, but those are the 3 that I'm interested in the most.
Okay.
Those are good choices.
Yeah. What say you?
My nostalgia is Super Nintendo World. I know it's not the greatest thing in the world. I love it I love Nintendo, especially playing it growing up. Isle of Burke is a sneaky great land. I was not expecting that before the park opened. I love that land. Probably I love Celestial Park, but I probably would say Dark Universe just because it's so unique. It needs to be bigger, but the vibe, like at night when you walk through there and see all that, like we were literally there, it was storming and there was lightning behind the mansion. And I was just like I got some pictures. Like it was the most photo-esque thing I'd seen of like fitting a land I walked into. I would say those 3. I enjoy all the lands of the park, but I would say those would be my top 3. But what about you, Jose?
So my top 3, I mean, there's only 4 lands. I mean, not counting Celestial Park.
5, Jose.
Without not counting out Celestial Park, right? 5, 4. There's 4.
I mean, OG included it.
All right. I actually really like Celestial Park. I think it's a unique new land. It doesn't it's not based on any IP. So from like an original perspective, it's probably my number 1, I think. Plus the 9-day experience is just totally different. Number 2, I'm gonna give it to Super Mario World. It's like falling in a box of crayons, man. It's just so crazy in there. And then my 3rd.
That's a great analogy, by the way. I love that. That's true.
It's a box of crayons all thrown together too, and you're just trying to dig through it.
And then my 3rd favorite land is Isle of Burke. I love Isle of Burke. It's so. I think the land that really just made my jaw drop was Isle of Burke when I walked in. I've never seen the movies either, but I mean, just from like just the approach to the aesthetic language of it was just like, wow. Dark more at night, definitely for sure. But I mean, as far as like originality, I mean, I feel like that's kind of been done. And then Battle at the Ministry of Magic. You're just walking into France, and I don't know. It's great. I mean, it's big, it's grandiose, it's realistic.
Yeah. I can't say they're like, yeah, it's France. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the ride's cool, but yeah, I mean, it's very well done. The scale of it's crazy. But
yeah.
No, I agree there with that stuff. One thing I think is really interesting is the fireworks show they might do, because they're updating the fountain in Celestial Park and some other stuff. I think I've been hearing them talk about this for a while, that they've been working on this show for well over a year at this point. So I kind of have some big expectations for it. So they
want it to be the premier firework experience in all of Orlando, which is, I mean, that's, again, that's a big statement, big goal, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. But well, we've been going here almost at 3 hours, and Jose and I, it's almost our bedtime here on the East Coast. The West Coast guys here, I got, it's a little early in the day for them, but it was honestly, this flew by. I thought we were maybe like at an hour, and I was like, oh, it's been almost 3 hours. But really good discussion. Glad you guys have you guys here. Thank you for in the chat. Before we go, just want everybody to let you know where you can find them. Thank you guys for being here. So Orange Grove 55, thank you as always for being here. And where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me right here on YouTube at Orange Grove 55, talking about very similar topics as what we discussed today. Theme parks, studio, we get into the corporate stuff, quarterly earnings calls, all that good stuff right here on YouTube, Orange Grove 55. These guys are on my channel all the time, so check it out. Also on Instagram, Orange Grove 55, and on X, Orange Grove 55.
Yes, sir. And he might be trying out for Han Solo. We'll see.
Yes.
If they you just make him say, I'll put a wig on, but I'm not touching the hair. You got to make it.
Yeah.
I'll just put it on over it. And then when I take it off, it'll still be the same.
I'm like, why is Johnny Bravo here? And Mr. Theme Park Philosophy, thank you as always for being here. And where can everybody find you?
Jared, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking with you guys tonight. You guys can find me on Theme Park Philosophy on YouTube and Instagram, where I do tidbit videos, philosophical approaches to theme parks. My last video, for example, was how we examined late stage capitalism and how it uses theme park architecture to induce a state of functional disassociation, because it's all about becoming the brand, right? So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check out my channel, Theme Park Philosophy on YouTube. You can find me right over there.
Absolutely. And Mr. Vash Sky, thank you for being here. Vash is doing awesome stuff on his channel. Be sure to go subscribe to Vash. He's doing some good stuff over there. I checked out. I just had the live stream on. I was gonna pop in. I just kept listening, and I was popping in and out. And I was just listening the whole time. It was really good. So go check that out. Thank you for being here. And where can everybody find you out here on the interwebs?
Vash Sky ParkCast is going to be the place you can find me on YouTube right there. You can also follow me on at Vash Sky over there on X. But on Vash Sky ParkCast, tomorrow we're going to have a live stream actually at 7 p.m. Eastern talking about maybe the potential end of live streaming at the Disney parks because of some recent high-profile events that have taken place. There's some rumors out there. Maybe we can go ahead and bring you guys some facts. I have to go ahead and get Barry Place 28 on, but if I'm not able to get him on, I do have his comments pre-recorded. So that might be kind of fun to go through and see what he has to say. It's going to be a lot of fun right there. So definitely join us at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for that amazing discussion. And on Saturdays for the Sky Watchers, that is the members only portion of my channel right there. We do have a great show called Vash and Vixen, going over like really in-depth Disney history. It was crazy. We were going over like the Phantom of the Opera and his appearances on Main Street and why he was actually there. It was wild. And a whole lot more. So that's a whole lot of fun for the members. We do that show once a week at Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. By the way, Just Dutchie with the 249 euros. She gave me this on my live stream. I thought I referenced it, but I'm not sure. Just want to make sure that I reference it at least somewhere. And she was saying that that's really sad and messed up. Talking about the Sloth story, we talked about it a little bit at the top of the show right there. Yeah. I do agree with that. I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we cover every single super chat. I'll do it again also on Vash Sky ParkCast on the program tomorrow, but I just want to make sure that we cover everybody because we never leave a super chat behind. Thank you so much, Jared.
Never leave a man nor a super chat behind. Absolutely.
That's right.
I like that. So yeah, absolutely. Go check out Vash. Go check out all these guys. And that was the one topic that got cut from this show was that one, which maybe the next theme park we talk about that because that one is really interesting about if Disney does that and how they might end up going about it. But thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you for the super chats to get the memberships. All you guys for participating. Pro had a raid over to Vash's channel, so thank you guys for being here. We greatly appreciate it. We do this show usually bi-weekly. Sometimes it's weekly. It's usually on Wednesday nights or Friday nights, but we try to just we talk about stuff and go on side quests sometimes, and sometimes it's random. Sometimes it makes sense, but who knows? But either way, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you guys on the next one. See you guys. Bye.